My name is Kim Jin-woo. I was suddenly transported to another world, standing dazed and completely bewildered before a grand assembly of kings, wizards, and nobles. I fought tooth and nail to survive in Arsalan for a very long time. Eventually, I became the master of the magic tower and the immortal archmage. But despite all my efforts, Arsalan is on the brink of destruction, threatened by a force known as the erosion. To save this world, I need modern earthlings like myself, and I need a lot of them. I can easily summon them myself, but in a world on the verge of ruin, there's no way I can offer them a satisfying reward. I need a motive that will make them risk their lives, even without any real reward. Combining my past career with my current powers, I came up with a plan. A synchronized, heavy march begins as countless warriors in standard-issue boots step forward in perfect unison. A massive army of adventurers gathers under a dramatic red-hued sunset, with a cheerful Viking warrior looking out and marveling at the insane view. The excited Viking exclaims that a view this good makes him want a drink, prompting a nearby rogue to offer some freshly brewed fruit wine. The Viking instantly recoils and covers his face at the awful stench, asking if it was brewed with poison berries, while the rogue jokingly promises it's a killer drink. A flamboyant bard with a lute rejoices that the beautiful scenery gives him immense inspiration, while his companion begs him to stop playing heavy metal music. The warrior looks out in anticipation at a vast landscape where an overwhelming horde of monsters stretches as far as the eye can see. The modern Earthlings will think of themselves as players in a dangerous game, amazed by the realistic graphics and how lifelike the virtual world feels. Believing it's all just a video game, they will fearlessly fight against the forces of destruction, driven solely by the desire to reach the game's ending. Drawing his sword with determination, the blonde commander commands everyone to get ready. A tense silence is broken as the massive monster army suddenly begins to charge, kicking up dark dust onto the crimson sky. A colossal, dark-fleshed beast unleashes a deafening, terrifying roar into the sky. Bloodthirsty goblins beat war drums and screech from high cliffs as they prepare to swarm their enemies. A dark, eclipse-like void hangs over the battlefield as the grotesque monsters screech and roar, preparing to clash with the waiting defenders. A battle-hardened warrior grins broadly as the hunters prepare for the fight, humorously discussing how they will cook and feast on goblin meat tonight. The commander raises his glowing blade high into the sky, signaling the start of the battle. In response, the entire army raises their glowing weapons, unleashing a brilliant, synchronized surge of magical energy. Pointing his sword forward, the leader rallies his troops with a thunderous cry, shouting, "For Arsalan!" In a high-tech modern facility, massive server racks hum with powerful cybernetic energy and glowing lines of code. A game user interface screen loads Arsalan Saga, displaying a goblin subjugation quest and a saintess asking players if they will fight against the forces of erosion. Earthlings lie in pods with VR headsets, their minds being uploaded into the network as glowing streams of blue data transfer them to Arsalan. Charging enthusiastically into battle, the excited players shout, "Let's go!" The roaring goblin is sliced down by a clean, powerful slash of a sword. A magnificent, multicolored beam of divine magic descends from the sky, cast by the legendary Archmage. Archmage Kim Jin-woo, an earthling summoned to Arsalan, looks forward with a piercing, intense gaze. Exhausted by the endless struggle, the Archmage lets out a weary sigh. Standing amidst a desolate landscape, the Archmage holds his magical staff as the dark, corrupting tentacles of the erosion press against his blue protective barrier. He bitterly reflects on the wretched erosion, noting that the planet Arsalan is slowly but surely being consumed as the corruption eats away at the land. From deep space, the planet Arsalan appears heavily corrupted, with 90% of its surface already consumed by the dark void of the erosion. Thanks to the massive mana barrier he developed, a few surviving kingdoms are barely hanging on against the relentless purple tide. However, the pure mana crystals powering the protective barrier are running dry, meaning they won't last more than 3 years at most. Once the barrier falls, Arsalan will face total ruin as the erosion resumes and monster hordes slaughter every living thing left. Reflecting on this dark fate, a traveler walks through the forest. His loyal companion addresses him by his grand titles, but Kim Jin-woo smiles tiredly and tells her to drop the titles, pointing out there's no point since the world is ending. His disciple, the High Elf Titus, respectfully complies but immediately nags him, reminding him that facing the erosion directly is far too dangerous. Jinwoo complains about her nagging him the moment she arrives, but she explains that a summons has been issued, noting things must be incredibly bad to call him out of retirement. Jinwoo admits they must be desperate, but confesses he doesn't have a solution, while Tyrus points out they rely on him because he is the only one unaffected by the erosion. He somberly remembers that the natives of Arsalan cannot survive in the eroded lands, as the corruption eventually infects and destroys their very souls. But as an otherworlder, Jinwoo is the sole exception whose soul is completely immune to the erosion, allowing him to convert its power to grow even stronger. He laments that he cannot fight this battle entirely alone, wishing he had an army of 1,000,000 or other legendary heroes immune to the corruption. Standing by the water, Jinwoo asks if he should decline the summons again, and Tyrus firmly agrees. Tyrus turns back to warn him not to overdo things just because he can achieve resurrection in a new body. Tyrus jokingly threatens that if he goes into the erosion again, she will make his next body a pretty boy or girl, prompting Jinwoo to sigh at her bizarre sense of humor. He recalls his past life on Earth, working himself to death on iced Americanos, and contrasts it with his life in Arsalan, where he built the magic tower and fought the erosion relentlessly. Archmage Kim Jinwoo stands amidst a swirling blue energy field holding his glowing staff, somberly reflecting that he has never actually rested in his life. Looking out at the ominous, swirling magical barrier, the Archmage realizes that it will shatter within 3 years once the mana crystals are completely exhausted, signaling the end of Arsalan. Desperately exhausted, the Archmage looks down and expresses his deep weariness, wishing he could simply let go of everything and finally rest. As a glowing light begins to envelop his hand, the bewildered Archmage looks on in confusion, wondering what this strange light could be. In a sudden, explosive surge of power, the Archmage is completely engulfed by a brilliant blue aura. A massive pillar of divine blue energy erupts from the ground and tears into the sky, leaving the Archmage completely astonished. Feeling a surge of absolute divine power, Jinwoo realizes that his soul has successfully transcended and awakened as a transcendent being. Staring at his hand in disbelief, he marvels at how he achieved this divine state, something he couldn't reach after decades of effort, only after he finally decided to let go of everything. Intrigued by his new power, Jinwoo raises his hand toward the sky, preparing to test his transcendent abilities as a swirling dark portal begins to form. A glowing status card appears before him, detailing the Soul Gate, a transcendent portal connected directly to his soul's home that allows him to pass through indefinitely in soul form. Observing the details of the Soul Gate, Jinwoo reflects on the rules of the portal, noting that he can cast magic through it and move physical matter depending on its size. Eager to test his new ability, Jinwoo focuses his power and unleashes a powerful blast of energy through the swirling gate. A brilliant stream of magical blue light bursts through the swirling vortex, successfully tearing open a path to another dimension. High above the modern streets of Seoul, the dimensional rift opens, drawing the stunned attention of pedestrians walking among the city's towering skyscrapers. Emerging from the swirling portal in a glowing blue soul form, Jinwoo looks down at the city in stunned silence. Gazing upon the iconic skyline of Seoul, dominated by a massive skyscraper, Jinwoo realizes with deep emotion that 100 years have passed since he was last here. Looking down at the citizens below, Jinwoo notes that even though he was gone for a century, no time seems to have passed on Earth, wondering if the dimensions were completely severed or if he traveled back in time. Driven by curiosity and nostalgia, Jinwoo accelerates downward like a bolt of lightning, eager to find his former home. Arriving at the location of his old home, Jinwoo looks on with a disappointed and weary expression, realizing that his house is completely gone and replaced by a modern building. As he floats through the city streets, Jinwoo somberly reflects that his very existence as Kim Jinwoo must have been erased from Earth, leaving him feeling a bit sad that every trace of his life was wiped out. Sensing his energy fluctuating, Jinwoo realizes that Earth's low mana density might cause his soul form to fade away if he stays too long, prompting him to find a vacant body as soon as possible. A sudden jolt of electricity courses through his soul form, instantly alerting him to a strong energy signature nearby. Deciding to investigate the source of the energy, Jinwoo's soul streaks directly toward a modern residential building. Passing through the glass window, Jinwoo is taken aback by the scene unfolding inside the room. Inside the room, a heart rate monitor flatlines with a continuous beep as a young man lies completely unresponsive on a hospital bed. Jinwoo's soul floats into the room, observing the flatlining youth who is hooked up to various medical machines. Standing near the bed, a group of people dressed in formal attire weep bitterly in deep grief over the tragedy. The doctor somberly informs the devastated grandfather that they did everything they could, but his grandson is gone, prompting the elderly chairman to cry out in absolute despair. Observing the scene, Jinwoo notes the full suite of medical equipment and wonders about the identity of the deceased youth, sensing a strange and familiar energy from him. Staring closely at the young man's face, Jinwoo's eyes widen as he makes a shocking realization about the boy's identity. Jinwoo remembers that the young man is Lee Jinwoo, the youngest grandson of the chairman of Osung Group, who was a brilliant genius with multiple doctorates but suffered from extremely poor health. Realizing that Lee Jinwoo's soul is completely gone and his body will stop breathing in a few hours, Jinwoo decides to possess the body, noting that they even share a similar name. Jinwoo's glowing soul form hovers directly above the deceased youth, unleashing a swirling aura of blue magical energy to begin the possession. The brilliant blue energy wraps around the body of Lee Jinwoo as the Archmage's soul successfully integrates into the physical vessel. A massive aura of divine energy swirls around the hospital bed, completely unnoticed by the grieving family members standing nearby. Suddenly, the flatlining young man's eyes snap wide open as life returns to his vacant body. To the absolute shock of the grieving family, Lee Jinwoo suddenly sits up on the bed and exhales a weary sigh of relief, glad that the possession worked. Staring in absolute disbelief, the grandfather gasps out his grandson's name, completely bewildered by the impossible miracle. Overwhelmed with emotion, the grandfather rushes forward and throws his arms around Jinwoo in a tight hug, crying hysterically as Jinwoo looks completely flustered. The entire family and medical staff burst into tears of absolute joy, crowding around the bed and shouting praises to God for this unbelievable miracle. The family tightly swarms and hugs the revived youth, prompting Jinwoo to complain that they are suffocating him, while his grandfather demands that the staff do something immediately. Sometime later, Jinwoo lies spread-eagled on a luxurious bed in his massive private room, staring blankly at the ceiling next to a handheld console and a plush doll. Reflecting on his new life, Jinwoo sighs at how chaotic his new family is, though he admits it is a natural reaction since they believe their youngest grandson had just returned from the brink of death. Looking over at his plush toy, Jinwoo realizes that living as a member of this incredibly wealthy and close-knit family might actually be a comfortable and pleasant way to spend his days. However, his expression turns somber as he remembers that Arsalan is still marching toward absolute ruin, wondering if there is any way to save his other world from the erosion. He reflects on the terrifying erosion core that endlessly spawns hordes of grotesque monsters, questioning if modern Earth weapons like tanks and armored vehicles could destroy it. He quickly dismisses the idea, realizing that even nuclear weapons would fail against the deeply hidden core, and doubts whether it would even be possible to transport such heavy military equipment to Arsalan. Unable to find a proper solution despite his deep thoughts, Jinwoo lets out a tired sigh and decides to reach for his handheld gaming console. Picking up the classic device, he tells himself that he needs to play a game to clear his cluttered head. Looking at the title screen of Legend of the Dragon 7, Jinwoo fondly recalls that this was one of the very few games that earned his approval back when he worked as a strict game director. Playing his handheld gaming console, Jinwoo reflects that while the game has a generic premise of becoming a hero and gathering companions to save the world, the story itself is actually quite compelling. Jinwoo sighs as he plays, wishing that another hero besides himself would descend upon Arsalan, noting that if they had millions of heroes instead of just one or two, the land would recover from the erosion in no time. A notification pops up on the console screen announcing that Hero Linka has obtained a Mage summon ticket and acquired an SSR 5-star companion. When asked if he would like to summon a second hero, Jinwoo selects yes. Jinwoo suddenly freezes, staring at his gaming screen in absolute shock as a game-changing realization hits him. In a sudden burst of inspiration, Jinwoo lets his console slip from his hands, dramatically declaring his plan to summon Earthlings to Arsalan to serve as its heroes. A transitional illustration showcasing the main characters of the story in a stylized format, signaling a shift in the narrative focus as Jinwoo prepares to execute his master plan. Jinwoo smiles confidently, detailing his strategy to summon Earthlings through the Soul Gate while tricking them into believing that the world of Arsalan is just an immersive video game. He resolves to create an incredibly detailed and captivating story to guide these Earthlings to fight off the erosion, knowing that their natural immunity to the corruption is Arsalan's only hope to avoid total destruction. Jinwoo proudly reflects on his highly unique circumstances, noting that he was a game developer in his past life, a powerful archmage in Arsalan, and is now the youngest son of an incredibly wealthy conglomerate family on Earth. With his powerful soul form manifesting behind him, Jinwoo clenches his fist in determination, reminding himself that they have exactly 3 years until Arsalan's destruction. The scene shifts to a grand, lavishly decorated dining room where Jinwoo's incredibly wealthy family gathers around an enormous dining table for a formal meal. During dinner, the doting grandfather affectionately calls Jinwoo his youngest puppy and warmly tells him to ask for anything he wants to eat or do, prompting Jinwoo to politely thank him. Grinning brightly at his grandfather, Jinwoo speaks up and tells him that there is indeed something specific he wishes to do. Setting his fork and knife down, the grandfather looks up with a suddenly worried and tense expression, asking Jinwoo if he wants to continue studying. The grandfather sternly reminds him that his obsessive studying almost killed him, but Jinwoo quickly reassures him that his request is about something else entirely. With a confident smile while preparing to eat a steak, Jinwoo proudly announces that he wants to develop a video game. The mention of game development hits the family like a bolt of lightning, sending shockwaves of absolute disbelief, horror, and confusion through everyone sitting at the table. Trembling with a dark, intense expression, the grandfather asks if he means those bleeping video games, making Jinwoo sweat slightly as he wonders if he has just received a hard rejection. Suddenly, tears of overwhelming joy stream down the grandfather's face as he covers his mouth in deep emotion and proudly gives Jinwoo a giant thumbs up. The family bursts into excited celebration, declaring that games are wonderful and expressing absolute relief that Jinwoo finally has a normal hobby like other kids his age, instead of only discussing neuroscience and artificial intelligence. Overjoyed, the grandfather calls it the best news he has heard in ages and asks his eldest grandson if they have a game company among their subsidiaries. The older brother confirms they own FS Games, though they have notoriously ruined every project they touched. The grandfather casually decides that will do, gifting the entire company to Jinwoo as a discharge present. Jinwoo is completely stunned by his grandfather's absolute and overwhelming level of support. Looking up at a massive, glittering corporate skyscraper, Jinwoo realizes that having an established company gives him a massive advantage, and its ruined state makes it the perfect playground to do whatever he wants. With a handsome and confident smile, Jinwoo expresses his deep gratitude to his grandfather, promising that he will do his absolute best with the company. In a quiet flash of magical light, Jinwoo's eyes slowly open as his soul successfully transitions back to his physical body in Arsalan. Sitting upon his grand throne in the magic tower, Jinwoo deduces that Tyrus must have moved his original body here, relieved to find it completely intact despite her jokes about making him look like a pretty boy. He notes that he cast a simple autopilot magic on his Earth body to keep it functioning naturally, and since his remote control is working smoothly, it should look fine despite being slightly awkward. Grabbing his glowing staff and rising from his throne, Jinwoo eagerly declares that it is time to go and write the core story for his new game. Inside a vast, sunlit archive filled with towering bookshelves, a beautiful high elf sits diligently at her desk, writing away with a quill as books float magically around her. Sunlight pours through the large library window as a magic tome floats in the air, creating a peaceful and mystical atmosphere while the elf remains deeply focused on her writing. Quietly sneaking up behind her, Jinwoo asks if she is writing a new piece, startling the high elf so badly that she lets out a comical shriek of fright. Panting in shock, Arsalan's premier storyteller, High Elf Tia, gasps that her heart almost stopped and begs him not to sneak up on her, prompting an apologetic smile from the Archmage. Jinwoo looks down at her intricate magical circles and handwritten pages, noting that Arsalan's greatest writer still seems as busy as ever. Tia explains that she is compiling all her works into one collection because everyone is going through such a rough time, wishing to give the people a temporary escape from their harsh reality. Leaning against her chair with a warm laugh, Jinwoo praises her compassion, noting that she has a truly wonderful heart. Sitting down across from her, Jinwoo proposes a scenario about a stranger suddenly dropping into Arsalan. Intrigued, Tia asks if this concept is for a novel, and Jinwoo slyly replies that it is something like that. Jinwoo explains that these strangers would have no duty or connection to this world, and would only want to enjoy themselves. He scratches his head and asks what it would take to make someone like that fight desperately for Arsalan. Tia deduces that he wants to control pleasure-seeking savages, explaining that they would first need a sense of belonging. Jinwoo sweat drops, correcting her that they aren't exactly savages, but urges her to be specific. Leaning in close with a devious grin, Tia dramatically declares that the ultimate key to controlling such people is love, immediately followed by tragedy. Tia passionately illustrates her plot, describing how a pleasure-seeking savage falls deeply in love with their perfect ideal and settles down, only for their beloved to meet a tragic end right before their eyes, sparking absolute despair. Laughing maniacally as she scribbles furiously in her magic book, Tia explains that is exactly when you comfort them, point them directly toward the enemy, and offer your help. Tia continues her dark brainstorming, suggesting that having a highly respected figure die tragically while saving the endangered savages would be another highly effective way to motivate them. She rants about using angst, revenge, loss, regret, and the burning desire born from grief to manipulate them. Watching her extreme passion, Jinwoo smiles in awe, realizing she whipped up this perfect master plan in no time. Jinwoo reflects on how love blinds people and revenge serves as a powerful motivator, concluding that if they immerse the Earthlings in these characters and throw in tragic backstories, they will move on their own. Laughing in pure sadistic delight, Tia exclaims that she can't wait to see those barbarians weep, leaving Jinwoo sweating in absolute silence at her terrifyingly intense personality. Jinwoo clears his throat to bring her back to reality, prompting Tia to blush furiously and apologize for getting carried away once more. Jinwoo reassures her and invites her to collaborate, noting that if this project goes well, millions of souls will read her story, which instantly blows Tia's mind. When Jinwoo suggests that her audience could even reach tens or hundreds of millions, Tia begins to tremble violently, prompting a worried and sweating look from the Archmage. Completely overwhelmed, Tia trembles in ecstatic shock, imagining hundreds of millions of Earthlings praising her genius, calling her work a certified masterpiece, and begging for the next chapter. Completely losing her composure, Tia grabs the desk and begs to be his slave, declaring she will do anything to make it happen. A sweating Jinwoo asks if she has always written in this state of mind, to which she passionately declares that the purest things are born from the most corrupted places. Discussing the plans for the upcoming beta test, the protagonist explains that 3,000 players will suddenly arrive in Rainsword, and that number will only grow. To get them fully invested, they must be given a compelling reason to fight against the erosion. Hearing this, the blonde elf girl excitedly remarks that it sounds just like a fantasy novel, wondering if these players are from a completely different civilization. The protagonist confirms her theory, explaining that the setting is Arsalan. He decides to make the starting point Edent Village, where evacuation plans are already underway to escape the erosion, and instructs her to write the tutorial starting zone story based on this location. The elf girl is swept up in dramatic inspiration, imagining Edent as a land of tragic love and suffering. Seeing her go completely over the top, the protagonist's sweat drops and decides it's best to simply leave her to her writing. The protagonist plans his next steps, knowing that since Arsalan is already a real world, weaving in lore with Tia's help will make drafting the story incredibly fast. Once the story is complete, he intends to submit the proposal to FS Games. Walking down the corridor with his staff, the protagonist reflects that a story alone won't be enough to convince his company's employees. Even with Lee Jinwoo's genius, they would likely think he has lost his mind without visual proof. He envisions a hyper-advanced, fully immersive sci-fi game world where players can do anything and be anyone with realistic freedom, technology that is currently deemed impossible with Earth's modern systems. Since the Soul Gate is currently restricted to single use, the protagonist realizes that he must first create a compelling story and high-quality promotional footage to showcase to the world. Deciding it is time to gather some actors, the protagonist initiates a telepathic link to contact Hasman, who responds loud and clear while holding a watering can in a beautiful flower garden. The protagonist commands Hasman to bring Halon and Haina to Rainsword Castle immediately for a vital task to save Arsalan. Hasman eagerly complies and accepts the order. Rainsword Castle's majestic spires and beautiful cathedral-like towers stand tall against a clear blue sky. A brilliant, swirling blue magic portal crackling with lightning opens inside the castle, and the protagonist steps through carrying his staff. Upon his arrival, 3 loyal subordinates bow deeply to welcome their lord back to the castle. With a fiery, zealous expression, Baron Hasman Agest proudly declares that he has faithfully managed the territory in his lord's absence, living up to his reputation as a devoted nobleman deeply respected by his people. Former Pope and Priest of Light, Priest Halon, clasps his hands with a beaming smile to offer the blessing of the goddess Ella to the lord. The protagonist praises their excellent work, but as they eagerly crowd around him with intense, overwhelming smiles, he nervously asks them to stop getting so close because they are quite terrifying. Clad in polished silver plate armor, Knight Commander Haina confidently declares that she is fully prepared to sacrifice her life for Arsalan. The protagonist evaluates his new actors, thinking that while the beautiful Haina is perfect, the other 2 look far too villainous and sinister to play respected holy roles like a priest or former pope. A mischievous, clever grin spreads across the protagonist's face as he hatches a perfect new plan for their roles. Channeling crackling dark magic in his hand, the protagonist asks Hasman about his proficiency in dark magic. Hasman humbly replies that his skills are nothing compared to his lord's. The protagonist brings out dark robes and instructs the 2 men to try them on, leaving them both completely confused. Halon and Hasman are forcefully transformed into a horrifying skeleton lich and a multi-handed dark priest. They cry out in despair at the absolute blasphemy, while the protagonist cheerfully notes how perfectly the scary garbs suit them. Having dealt with the two priests, the protagonist turns his attention to Knight Commander Heine to evaluate her look. Heine stands in confusion as the protagonist complains that her bulky, full-plate armor is way too much, reflecting on how female knights are traditionally portrayed in popular games. The protagonist suddenly pulls out a brand new outfit, causing Heine to recoil in sheer shock and scream at the thought of wearing something so revealing. Despite her frantic protests and blushing face, the protagonist firmly hands her the fabric and commands her to put it on. Leaning in close with an intense, glowing gaze, the protagonist whispers that this sacrifice is purely for the sake of Arsalan, leaving a tearful Heine speechless and unable to refuse. Heine emerges in her new, highly revealing fantasy-style knight armor that leaves her thighs and midriff completely exposed, causing the protagonist's eyes to widen in absolute amazement. Looking down from above, the protagonist gives a thumbs up and praises the outfit as perfect, while Heine blushes and anxiously questions if this can even be classified as real armor. The protagonist confidently explains that on Earth, exposed skin is directly proportional to defense rating. Heine is left completely bewildered, questioning what kind of bizarre place his homeworld must be. As the protagonist feels the promotional concept coming together, his three cast members stand in a line looking incredibly dejected, wondering why their sacred mission for Arsalan has taken such a bizarre, twisted turn. He plans to have Heine act as a protective knight standing against the two dark villains, shielding a fragile, tragic Saintus. He ponders whether he should contact Saintus the Besa for the role. Imagining the 200-year-old frail, elderly Saintus the Besa struggling to run, the protagonist immediately sweat drops and dismisses the idea, realizing she would never fit the fragile, beautiful Saintus trope. The protagonist's attention is suddenly drawn to a playful voice calling out from nearby. Children run through the castle courtyard laughing, while a flustered woman with bat wings chases after them, telling them not to run inside the Lord's castle. The kids gasp in excitement upon spotting the Lord, while the exhausted caretaker panics and halts in shock at running right into him. Heavy of breath and sweating profusely, the succubus Irie bows deeply to apologize, explaining that the children wandered into the castle grounds on their own. Looking closely at Irie's exhausted and delicate features, a dark, opportunistic smile creeps onto the protagonist's face. The protagonist points dramatically at Irie, commanding her to play the role of the tragic Saintus, which leaves her completely dumbfounded. Irie frantically protests that she is a succubus from a wicked race meant to seduce people, but the protagonist declares that her nature makes her contrast even more perfect for the tragic holy role, driving her into a panic about committing blasphemy. Clapping his hands together with a cheerful, content smile, the protagonist prepares to start the production. He asks his newly formed cast, consisting of a terrified succubus Saintus, a scary skeleton lich, a multi-handed dark priest, and a highly exposed female knight, if they are ready to do some acting. The protagonist sits grandly on his throne in the majestic hall as his disciples kneel before him, reciting his grand titles while he casually asks them to drop the formalities. The elf girl kneels respectfully, reporting that all 130 disciples have been gathered as requested, but she trails off as she notices something highly unusual about the people around him. She looks up in bewilderment, asking why everyone is wearing such bizarre, dark costumes, only for the protagonist to happily explain that they are just doing some roleplay. Holding a glowing crystalline recording orb, the protagonist confidently declares that they are role-playing to save Arsalan, leaving his elf disciple completely perplexed. Standing before the entire assembly of disciples in his grand hall, the protagonist delivers a shocking announcement that he has recently undergone an awakening. The disciples celebrate and congratulate him in excitement. The protagonist explains that he can open the soul gate to contact other worlds, allowing him to summon erosion-immune heroes from another dimension to save Arsalan. Floating his glowing crystal orb, he commands them to set aside their current duties to prepare everything for the arriving heroes, prompting a disciple to ask what exactly they need to do. He hands the glowing memory orb to his disciples, explaining that it contains the high-quality promotional footage that they all just acted out. He spreads his arms wide, instructing his disciples to edit the recorded footage to add a grand, divine feel, more skeleton enemies, and a highly detailed dramatic background. Looking up at the Archmage from the steps below, a startled mage holds a glowing mana crystal in disbelief as Jinwoo orders him to compress a video so that it can fit inside the small crystal. Jinwoo demands that he never hears a mage say they can't do something, sending a wave of absolute dread through the gathered mages who sweat and tremble in despair. Looking on with a sly, confident smirk, Jinwoo notes that while the mages look incredibly troubled, they will get the job done, because making the impossible possible is exactly what mages do. Reflecting on their blue robes, Jinwoo realizes that the mages gathered together look exactly like the cute blue cat doll sitting in his bedroom on Earth. Pointing his finger dramatically, Jinwoo declares that from now on, the mages are his magical amongs, leaving the cartoonish cat-like mages sweat-dropping in complete confusion. Jinwoo's chibi head explains that the creature is from Earth and makes any wish come true, prompting the tearful cat mages to sniffle and agree to make all his wishes a reality. The scene transitions to the bustling, sunlit streets of Seoul with car horns blaring as pedestrians cross the street. Dressed in a sharp, tailored black business suit, Jinwoo stands confidently in front of a glittering glass skyscraper holding a sleek metallic case in his hand. Smiling proudly, Jinwoo notes that thanks to his hard-working magical amongs, the demo video was completed in no time while the exhausted mages collapse in the background. A massive man in a suit approaches Jinwoo, politely greeting him as President Lee Jinwoo and causing the young master to look up in surprise. The large, muscular man introduces himself as Kim Han-soo, proudly stating that he is Jinwoo's new secretary and expressing his absolute pleasure to meet him. Shaking hands, Kim Han-soo explains that Chairman Lee Un-song personally requested that he assist the young master, prompting Jinwoo to warmly look forward to working with him. Walking down the hallway together, Secretary Kim informs Jinwoo that he has successfully gathered all the company's employees in the meeting room, and Jinwoo confidently agrees to head up. Inside the quiet meeting room, FS Games' stressed head of development, Han Young-seon, sits with his head in his hands, sweating profusely in deep anxiety. Han Young-seon scrolls through articles on his phone, reading devastating headlines about FS Games being ruined, choosing money over the future, and practically disbanding. Staring anxiously at his phone, Han Young-seon reflects on Lee Jinwoo, a terrifyingly brilliant genius who earned 5 doctoral degrees in his early 20s. He wonders why a genius who recently recovered from the brink of death would take over their failing company, questioning if Jinwoo intends to revive the dying developer just as he revived himself. Suddenly, the meeting room door is thrown open as Secretary Kim dramatically announces that the president is entering. Stepping into the room with a calm, extremely handsome smile, Jinwoo radiates a powerful, overwhelming presence that commands the attention of everyone present. Seeing Jinwoo's face, Han Young-seon's glasses literally shatter in absolute shock as he gasps in surprise. Staring in sheer awe, Han Young-seon trembles, deeply intimidated by Jinwoo's incredibly powerful and commanding aura. Sitting at the head of the long conference table, Jinwoo confidently introduces himself, noting that he doesn't think any introductions are necessary for his staff. Clenching his hands together with a sharp, calculating grin, Jinwoo declares that they should start the meeting right away. Looking over the company files, Jinwoo points out that Line Saga shut down last month, and their massive 30 billion won game project failed miserably before it could even launch. As Jinwoo notes that the entire new development team abandoned them for NFSoft, a sweating and devastated Han Young-seon covers his head, tearfully apologizing and taking full responsibility. While Han Young-seon despairs, thinking they are all doomed to be fired and shut down, Jinwoo suddenly smiles and declares that he absolutely loves it. Han Young-seon looks up in utter disbelief as Jinwoo explains that since everything is already completely ruined, they can easily clear it all out and start entirely fresh. Jinwoo's chibi head brightly announces that he has something to show them, prompting his giant secretary to hand out copies of a brand new proposal to the stunned staff. Han Young-seon stares down at the cover page of the thick document, reading the title Project Arsalan in complete surprise. Jinwoo explains that the document is a proposal for a full virtual reality game, complete with the main lore, scenario, and basic concept art, inviting them to share their thoughts. Reading through the proposal, the staff members are completely blown away, praising the solid lore, clear selling points, and the unique blend of medieval and modern styles. Han Young-seon voices his concerns, noting that VR headsets aren't mainstream yet, and full virtual reality might be dismissed by the public as a total scam. Jinwoo lets out a cheerful laugh, reassuring Han Young-seon that people will practically be begging to buy it, which leaves the developer completely dumbfounded. Slamming his hand firmly on the table, Jinwoo looks up with an intense, unwavering expression, declaring that he means exactly what he said. Standing tall and proud at the head of the table, Jinwoo exudes supreme confidence as he prepares to show them the truth. Jinwoo asks if there is a large room in the building, and upon learning they have a cleared-out motion capture studio, he commands everyone to gather the entire staff there immediately. Inside the massive, empty motion capture studio, the entire staff of FS Games gathers together, whispering in tense anticipation and curiosity. The employees gossip nervously, wondering if this virtual reality project is just a bizarre scam or if the eccentric young master is actually onto something. Han Young-seon reports that everyone has gathered, prompting a confident Jinwoo, who is holding a mysterious dark metallic cube, to ask for the lights to be turned off.
Kneeling on the ground in the dark room, Jinwoo tells the staff to take a step back as he prepares to activate the device.
Placing the metallic cube on the floor, Jinwoo touches its surface and calmly declares that it is time to begin. Instantly, a massive, brilliant blue magic circle erupts from the cube, sending crackling bolts of magical lightning and energy throughout the entire room as the staff gasps in shock. Shielding his face from the blinding light and roaring winds, Han Yang-san yells in absolute horror, wondering how a magic circle in real grass could possibly appear inside the studio. As the blinding flash of magical light slowly fades, a completely stunned Han Yang-san lowers his hands, his eyes widening in sheer disbelief. The staff looks down in absolute shock to find the cold concrete floor has been entirely replaced by a vast, lush green field of grass swaying in the wind. Suddenly, a colossal, terrifying red dragon roars deafeningly as it swoops down from the bright blue sky directly toward the panicked staff. The employees scream and run for their lives in absolute terror, while a laughing Jinwoo calmly tells everyone to relax because it is just a simple hologram. Han Yang-san looks back in complete shock as Jinwoo walks forward, casually explaining that this realistic hologram is what he means by virtual reality. Spreading his arms wide against a stunning, limitless landscape of rolling green hills, majestic mountains, and soaring creatures, Jinwoo proudly welcomes them to the world of Arsalan. High above the beautiful green plains of Arsalan, the magnificent red dragon flies gracefully through the sky, hunting wild beasts in a breathtaking display of perfect realism. A beautiful and expansive landscape of Arsalan unfolds, showing majestic flying creatures, towers, and golems in a lush green valley, with the narration box declaring this is the world that will serve as the setting for Project Arsalan. In absolute shock, the staff members look around the grassy plain and ask if they are actually standing inside the game he planned, to which Jinwoo confidently confirms with a smile. Jinwoo snaps his fingers as Han Yang-san wonders how such technology is even possible, prompting the president to suggest they move on to the main story. Suddenly, the bright grassy field turns dark and shadowy, causing the staff to panic in complete confusion. In the red-tinted sky, a solar eclipse begins to take place as the sun is slowly covered by darkness. The sky turns blood red as the solar eclipse reaches its peak, casting an ominous shadow over the world. A massive skeletal hand erupts from the ground as evil dark spellcasters summon a horde of undead, laughing maniacally and declaring that their dark power will corrupt all mortals. An army of skeletal warriors rises from the ground as their skull-faced leader orders his undead servants to feast on the flesh of the mortals. Panicking in terror, the staff scrambles to run away, asking Jinwoo if this is really just a hologram, to which Jinwoo teasingly replies that maybe it isn't. Jinwoo calmly tells everyone to stand back as a massive shadowy threat sweeps across the area, startling Han Yang-san. A powerful female knight with red hair leaps down, swinging her sword with intense blue energy. With a decisive and powerful strike, the red-haired female knight completely shreds the surrounding skeleton soldiers to pieces. A glowing golden hand reaches out, casting a brilliant light as a gentle voice tells everyone not to fear. A massive beam of golden light descends from the sky, revealing the divine silhouette of a winged saintess in white. Standing majestically behind the red-haired knight, the glowing saintess declares that the light will protect them. The staff cheers in absolute excitement and relief, crying out that the female Knight of Light saved them and praising the blessing of the saintess, while Jinwoo quietly observes. Looking at the emotional and tearful reaction of his staff, Jinwoo smirks to himself, pleased that they are already completely immersed in the demonstration. Jinwoo's expression turns sharp and calculating as he confidently notes that everything is going according to plan. Standing proudly with his arms crossed against the dark red sky, Jinwoo smiles to himself, satisfied that things are moving exactly as he planned. With a sharp, mysterious smirk, Jinwoo declares that it is time for the climax of the show. An evil, skull-faced wizard surrounded by green flames holds his bone staff, evilly laughing about having fresh test subjects to play with. The evil wizard commands his skeletal minions to charge, tearing their enemies apart and feasting on their flesh as the undead horde roars. Standing before the looming undead threat, the red-haired female knight resolutely prepares her sword as the saintess hovers protectively behind her. Raising her glowing hand toward the sky, the saintess begs everyone to lend her their light. Under the influence of the illusion, the staff members enthusiastically raise their hands to the sky, crying out to gather their strength and help the saintess. Infused with their collective energy, the female knight's sword crackles with powerful golden lightning as she leaps high into the air with a mighty battle cry. With a fierce and determined look, the red-haired knight swings her fully charged sword downward, shouting, "For Arsalan!" Swept up in the intense emotion, the staff members pump their fists in the air and yell along with her, screaming, "For Arsalan!" The knight's powerful strike lands directly on the undead leader, causing him to scream in absolute denial. A blinding explosion of golden light erupts, completely disintegrating the skeleton wizard as he screams in agony. Falling to his knees as he dissolves, the defeated wizard desperately begs his master, the hooded Lord of Erosion, to spare him. Enveloped in menacing purple flames, the dark hooded figure callously declares he has no use for weak trash and snaps his fingers. The Dark Lord's purple fire completely consumes the screaming wizard, turning him into ash. Staring in awe and horror, the staff realizes that the terrifying villain just mercilessly killed his own ally. The hooded villain turns his imposing, purple-flamed gaze toward the staff and coldly announces that it is now their turn. Terrifying purple energy erupts around the staff, causing them to scream and panic in absolute fear. Enveloped by the suffocating purple mist, the staff members shield their heads in panic, desperately screaming to be saved. Suddenly, the illusion vanishes, leaving a shivering and crying Han Yong-seon back in the cold, empty motion capture studio. Han Yong-seon opens his eyes and blinks in utter confusion as he realizes the horrifying scene is gone. The rest of the staff slowly look around, finding themselves completely safe and unharmed on the concrete floor of the quiet studio. Standing casually by the light switch, Jinwoo turns the studio lights back on and cheerfully asks everyone what they think. Jinwoo flashes a bright, charming smile, looking incredibly pleased with the success of his demonstration. The excited staff members rush over to Jinwoo, clamoring to know how this incredible technology is possible and begging to see the Saintess again, while Jinwoo asks them to calm down. Coughing to hide his embarrassment, Han Yong-seon adjusts his glasses and blushes, admitting he got carried away since it was his first time experiencing virtual reality. Han Yong-seon asks Jinwoo if it's really okay to reveal such an invaluable trade secret, warning that a technology of this level is beyond imagination and could cause chaos if word got out. Jinwoo smugly points out that nobody would have believed it anyway, telling them to go ahead and tell people that FS Games is making a VR game, which Han Yong-seon realizes is true. Spreading his hand, Jinwoo asks if they are ready to join him, prompting the staff to enthusiastically declare they will do anything and follow him to the ends of the earth. Jinwoo announces that they will forget traditional game development and build the game from scratch using a new engine he developed with AI assistance. Raising his fist high in the air, Jinwoo declares that they can make history together, inspiring the staff to shout in unison. An anonymous post on a popular Korean corporate community board, Blinder, shocks the public with a title declaring FS Games is the future of Korean gaming and is making a game that will change the world. An anonymous post on a Korean community board declares that FS Games is developing a game that will change the world, specifically emphasizing that it is a virtual reality game. The poster passionately writes that CEO Lee Jinwoo is a god and a savior who will build the ultimate gamer utopia, calling it an unstoppable wave bigger than Bitcoin. Under the post, online commenters react with extreme skepticism, scoffing at FS Games and calling the project a joke and a playground for a spoiled tycoon brat. In Lee Jinwoo's private lab, Jinwoo sits at his computer, calmly smiling as he notes that, of course, nobody believes the online rumors. Suddenly, Jinwoo's smartphone on his desk begins to vibrate with an incoming call from his grandfather. Jinwoo answers the call and his grandfather asks if he has seen the trash-talking articles online, to which Jinwoo admits he skimmed through them. Jinwoo's grandfather angrily offers to summon their legal team to teach the online trolls a lesson, but Jinwoo chuckles and tells him it is fine because it is actually good publicity. Sitting in his office, the old man looks at online articles about FS Games scrapping its card system and wonders if they will regain player trust. Jinwoo confidently explains over the phone that they have actually just finished the prototype and everything is going smoothly. With a smile, Jinwoo mentions that they have also just finished implementing the fishing skill in the game. Jinwoo asks his grandfather if he still loves fishing, prompting the old man to boast about his past adventures catching giant sharks and marlins. When Jinwoo invites him to go fishing, his grandfather declines, admitting his back has been acting up and that he needs to rest. Jinwoo smiles and says there is something he wants to show him, telling his grandfather that he will head over to his place right away with the VR device. At his grandfather's house, the old man curiously inspects the sleek light blue VR headset Jinwoo brought over. Jinwoo encourages his grandfather to lie down comfortably and try on the headset, promising him a massive surprise. As the old man lies down with the headset on, he internally notes that the fit and design of Jinwoo's device are far superior to what major tech teams make, feeling proud of his grandson. Jinwoo asks if his grandfather is ready, and the old man enthusiastically agrees to give it a try.
Jinwoo touches the device and tells his grandfather that he will see him in Arsalan as the system begins to boot up. A brilliant flash of blue light erupts within the digital space, causing the grandfather to blink in utter confusion and wonder where he is. Opening his eyes, the grandfather is astonished to find his hands are youthful and that he is standing in the middle of a vast, sunny, and beautiful forest. Walking down the grassy, sunlit path, the grandfather is startled as Jinwoo's voice suddenly welcomes him to Arsalan.
Turning around in shock, the grandfather demands to know where they are, and a smiling Jinwoo proudly explains that they are inside the virtual reality game he is developing. Jinwoo summons a floating digital mirror, explaining that he modeled his grandfather's virtual avatar after how he looked back in his 40s. Staring in absolute disbelief at his young, muscular reflection, the grandfather gasps in shock as Jinwoo smiles and reminds him he promised a surprise. The grandfather touches his face and chest, amazed that his body doesn't ache at all and that he feels incredibly refreshed and full of energy. Overwhelmed with excitement, the grandfather asks when Jinwoo managed to research and build such an advanced, mind-blowing technology. Jinwoo makes up a plausible excuse, claiming that when he was in a vegetative state, his mind was conscious and he had plenty of time to fully immerse himself in his thoughts and ideas. Jinwoo eagerly shakes his grandfather's hand and says it's time to get going, prompting the old man to ask where they are headed. They arrive at the edge of a breathtakingly clear, brilliant blue lake surrounded by majestic green mountains. The grandfather stands beside Jinwoo, completely mesmerized by the beautiful and expansive view of the lakeside. Suddenly, Jinwoo opens a glowing magical portal and casually pulls out a wooden chair and a fishing rod for his grandfather. Amazed by the convenient system, the grandfather accepts the fishing rod, marveling at how realistic and magical the VR environment feels. Feeling the rod in his hands, the grandfather is pleased to find it feels exactly like the high-quality fishing rods he used to use in his prime. With a confident grin, the grandfather swings the rod back, excitedly telling Jinwoo to watch closely and see how a master does it. The grandfather casts his line with immense power, sending the lure flying across the sky to land with a sharp splash in the middle of the lake. Almost instantly, the water erupts in a massive splash, and the grandfather yells in excitement that he has already got a bite. The grandfather grips the bending rod tightly, straining against the heavy pull and declaring that this fish has some serious fight in it. Bulging his veins and flexing his powerful muscles, the grandfather roars that he is stronger and forcefully pulls the rod back. With a mighty tug, a colossal armored blue fish is ripped out of the water, soaring high into the air. The massive blue creature flies over the grandfather's head and crashes heavily onto the rocky shoreline. Staring at the giant, scale-covered beast, the stunned grandfather gasps in wonder, while Jinwoo enthusiastically claps and praises his grandfather's amazing catch. Looking down at his hands, the grandfather emotionally reflects on how he had completely resigned himself to old age and the relentless flow of time. Raising his fist in triumph, the grandfather joyfully cheers, declaring he hasn't felt this full of life and vitality in a very long time. The grandfather bursts into hearty, roaring laughter, while Jinwoo looks on with a pleased and proud smile. Observing his grandfather's immense joy, Jinwoo smiles warmly, recalling that he originally brought humans here to protect Arsalan. Jinwoo concludes that this peaceful outcome isn't so bad either, and cheerfully suggests taking a picture to celebrate his grandfather's massive catch. Straddling the giant blue fish like a steed, the grandfather flexes his muscles and laughs, yelling that he is bursting with energy. As night falls, the two set up a cozy campfire by the lake, roasting large, thick chunks of the fish on wooden skewers. Taking a huge bite, the grandfather is fascinated to find that he can actually taste the delicious roasted fish and feel completely full, while Jinwoo warmly tells him to enjoy his meal. Suddenly, Jinwoo notices rustling in the dark bushes nearby, spotting two mysterious elven figures watching them and noting he has never seen those people in Rainsword before. Sitting around the campfire, Jinwoo's grandfather points out the newcomers and asks if someone else is logged in besides them. But Jinwoo explains that they are actually NPCs, leaving the elven scouts completely baffled. Whispering in the bushes, the elven archer mutters that the strangers are speaking absolute gibberish and decides they must drag these suspicious intruders back to their lord. Suddenly, a commanding voice barks halt, instantly freezing the two scouts in absolute terror as a massive, heavy pressure weighs down upon them. Flashing a terrifying, red-eyed, demonic expression, Jinwoo warns them that he is currently attending to an important guest and tells them to leave, prompting the terrified elves to recognize him as their lord. Apologizing profusely, the scouts scramble and flee back into the forest, leaving Jinwoo's grandfather to wonder if it was a programming glitch, which Jinwoo casually confirms.
Sitting by the fire, the grandfather praises Jinwoo's hard work and asks how much he has developed so far, to which Jinwoo lists a starting village, one city, and a hunting ground, earning his grandfather's promise of full support. Jinwoo smiles smugly, thrilled that with the backing of the Osung Group chairman, development will speed up significantly, while politely thanking his grandfather and promising to do his best. Mimicking the motion of removing virtual glasses, the grandfather asks if Jinwoo has to take the connection device back, and Jinwoo explains that there are still many things to fix before the final release. Dramatically clutching his back, the grandfather playfully complains that he is old and sick, waiting for his time to come, while Jinwoo points out he is perfectly healthy, making the old man jokingly cry out that his grandmother is calling him. Under the starlit sky, a sweating Jinwoo relents and tells his grandfather to keep the device for now, promising to let him know when he can log in again, which immediately delights the old man. Bathed in the warm sunset, the massive Osung Group headquarters stands tall as development on the game progresses smoothly thanks to Chairman Lee Eun-song's absolute support. Inside the busy office of FS Games, the programming team quickly adapts to the Magic Engine, developing systems at several times their previous speed to polish quality-of-life features. The art and story teams bring the game's lore to life, designing detailed NPCs like the beautiful elf Tia and the dashing Prince Leon based on the scenario. Staring at Prince Leon on her monitor, a female staff member swoons, calling him her absolute favorite character and expressing her deep desire to see him move in real life. As Han Young-san walks by, she eagerly asks if they will finally get to see Prince Leon in person once they enter the virtual world of Arsalan. Spotting Han Young-san, the staff members glare at him and complain that only the directors and team leads have been allowed to test the game, leaving him sweating in embarrassment. The female staff tease Han Young-san, asking if it's really that fun playing by himself, since he's always in the test room and never goes home, to which he weakly excuses himself as just working. Suddenly, Jinwoo walks into the office with a bright, charming smile alongside his secretary, warmly greeted by the energetic staff members. Walking through the corridor, Jinwoo announces that the connection device has finally passed the stability test and will soon go into production, causing the staff to erupt in excitement. Jinwoo turns to Han Young-san and invites him to share an important announcement with the rest of the team, which the director eagerly accepts. Adjusting his glasses, Han Young-san asks the staff if they are familiar with Universe Unpack, the massive event showcasing Osung Electronics' upcoming new products. With a proud smile, Han Young-san reveals that FS Games will be participating in the event, sparking a wave of ecstatic cheers from the passionate staff. Han Young-san clenches his fist tightly, emotionally reflecting on how hard it must have been for everyone to endure all the insults and criticism thrown at their company and CEO. Raising his hand high, Han Young-sun passionately declares that it is finally time for those insults to turn into praise, promising that Arsalan Saga will completely conquer the global gaming market. As the staff cheers in absolute excitement, Jinwoo announces that once the presentation is over, everyone will receive a high-end model of the device for a large-scale internal test. Overjoyed by the incredible news, the staff pumps their fists in the air, loudly chanting CEO Lee Jinwoo's name in unison. Suddenly, Jinwoo is startled as his phone begins to vibrate rapidly in his pocket. Looking at his screen, Jinwoo sees a barrage of urgent messages from his grandfather, demanding that he open the server immediately because his vacation starts today. Gasped in shock, Jinwoo reads a final message from his grandfather, warning that he is already on his way to Jinwoo's office right now. Jinwoo quickly tells the staff that he has some urgent business to attend to and lets everyone head home early, which the teasing staff suspects is Han Young-san trying to suck up again. A caption reads a short while later as the scene transitions to a beautiful, bright, sunny day in the city. Outside the massive Osung Electronics Convention Center, a huge crowd gathers under banners of elf characters for the highly anticipated Universe Unpacked event. Among the crowd, a popular tech reviewer named Handel notes with a camera that FS Games actually made it to the event, wondering if they are announcing a second-generation VR device. Handel scoffs that if they just hyped up virtual reality to release another mediocre headset, they are scammers, pointing out the major limitations of the current VR market. Despite his skepticism, Handel admits they got everyone's attention, while his companion jokes that he can already see Handel making a savage roast video about it. Inside the packed auditorium, the host stands on the brightly lit stage, welcoming the audience and announcing that the official Osung Electronics Unpack event is about to begin. The host enthusiastically introduces a very special guest to showcase their revolutionary new venture, gesturing to a silhouette walking onto the stage. Emerging from the shadows, a handsome and confident Jinwoo in a sharp blue suit adjusts his tie, ready to shock the entire world. The crowd mutters in excitement as Jinwoo introduces himself as the CEO of FS Games, recognizing him as the returned genius of the Osung family. Grinning, Jinwoo displays a humorous meme of himself on the screen, admitting he has been highly entertained by the wild rumors claiming he built superconductors or anti-gravity devices. Jinwoo confidently promises the audience that while his new product might not be quite that extreme, it will completely exceed their wildest expectations. Raising his arm toward the audience, Jinwoo dramatically commands the demonstration to begin. Suddenly, a massive, realistic wave of water erupts across the stage and washes over the audience, causing the shocked spectators to wonder if this is some kind of mind-blowing 4D effect. Standing amidst the watery projection, Jinwoo narrates that humanity has successfully conquered the oceans, setting foot on every single shore despite countless hardships. The scenery shifts to a vast desert and then to a snowy mountain peak as Jinwoo speaks of humanity's courage to cross plains, touch eternal snow, and conquer the highest peaks. Shivering in absolute shock, a spectator catches a projected snowflake, amazed that he can actually feel the freezing cold and texture of the snow. The environment shifts to the cosmic expanse of space as Jinwoo explains that humanity conquered the skies, sent probes to Mars, and dreamed of conquering the entire universe. Looking up at the swirling galaxies, Jinwoo notes that due to physical limitations, exploring the stars is nearly impossible with current technology, leaving humanity born too early to explore the cosmos. Snapping his fingers with a confident grin, Jinwoo declares that he did not give up Tears and Dreams and has successfully created a brand new world for everyone to explore. Suddenly, a blinding pillar of purple and blue digital energy erupts from the stage, enveloping the entire audience in an awe-inspiring light. Suddenly transported to a red, desolate landscape, a large crowd of confused people stands around in utter bewilderment, wondering where they are as a small, pink-winged creature pops into existence next to a shocked spectator holding a camera. More of the mysterious pink creatures begin to materialize and fly all around the panicked crowd, prompting terrified screams and confusion as the spectators wonder what is happening. Standing confidently on a stage against the backdrop of a blood-red sky, Jinwoo holds a microphone and welcomes the crowd, preparing to introduce their destination. As a massive skeletal dragon breathes purple flames behind various fantasy characters, Jinwoo's voice echoes, introducing Arsalan Saga, the ultimate full-dive virtual reality game of dreaming hope. Jinwoo announces that early access for Arsalan Saga will begin in 2 weeks, revealing that the dedicated connection device, Soul Link, goes on sale today with a highly limited run of only 2,500 units. An official Osung Electronics webpage displays the Soul Link connection device for Arsalan Saga, priced at 3,120,000 KRW and limited to 2,500 units. The shocking announcement of a functional full-dive virtual reality device immediately takes the internet by storm, leaving people questioning if it is actually real. Online comments erupt with intense skepticism and disbelief, with users debating whether Osung Electronics is pulling a massive scam to manipulate stock prices, while some contemplate purchasing it anyway just in case it's real. Staring at his computer screen, the tech YouTuber Handel notes that while the online comments are completely skeptical, the Soul Link has already sold out instantly, making him resolve to sue immediately if it turns out to be a scam. Discussing the release in his room, Handel mentions that since he managed to buy one, he will unbox and review it when early access starts in 2 weeks, joking that he can't wait to see if they'll meet in Arsalan or in a courtroom. Sitting quietly in his chair, Handel's friend in the beanie remains completely silent, listening to Handel's plan. Adjusting his beanie with a smirk, Handel's friend looks at his phone and confidently declares that if the game is real, he'll quit being a tech YouTuber to become an Arsalan YouTuber instead. 2 weeks later, Arsalan's breathtaking fantasy landscape is shown, with dragons soaring through a beautiful blue sky above a peaceful green valley and a massive castle. Jinwoo looks up toward the bright sky with a smug and knowing smirk on his face. Holding a magnificent wooden staff, Jinwoo watches the forest path with anticipation, murmuring that the heroes of Earth are finally coming. At the village square, a muscular man laughs boisterously as he practices welcoming the adventurers to his tavern under the name Hagode. Suddenly, an elf woman interrupts the rehearsal with a loud, commanding shout, telling him to hold on. Holding a clipboard, the elf director aggressively critiques Hagode's stiff acting, ordering him to be much more cheerful and demanding that he eat 6 meals a day starting today to gain the round belly of a proper tavern owner. Turning her attention to the next actor, the elf director calls out Thompson the blacksmith, asking if he has his lines down, to which the blacksmith confidently salutes and prepares for action. Thompson laughs maniacally as lightning crackles behind him, demonstrating his line about the enhancement failing and all materials being lost, earning praise from the director, who tells him to sound even more sarcastic. Thompson questions if it's necessary to fail when the enhancement success rate is actually 99%, but the elf explains it builds immersion and fits the lore, while another NPC likens it to simulating a gambling addiction. Jinwoo walks up to the group, warmly praising their hard work, which immediately delights the elf. Jinwoo asks if the magic tower is running smoothly ahead of the player's arrival, and the elf confirms that they can generate up to 10,000 bodies at once, though expanding the facilities will be required for any more than that. Jinwoo strokes his chin thoughtfully, realizing that the limited supply of mana crystals is their current bottleneck and must be resolved to reach their ultimate goal smoothly. Reflecting on the challenge, Jinwoo notes that they definitely need more forces but shouldn't rush, planning to reclaim the eroded land step by step with the first batch of heroes while focusing on the positives for now. Looking around at the cheerful townspeople, Jinwoo notes how different the lively atmosphere is compared to when everyone was dying in despair, reflecting on how hope breathes life back into people. Jinwoo asks if there are any other issues, and the elf administrator reveals that they currently don't have a knight who can play the crucial role of Prince Leon. Jinwoo casually suggests picking any knight who is good with a sword, but the elf enthusiastically rejects the idea, drooling over the concept art and insisting Leon must be a peerless beauty who embodies the holy sword since he is the central figure. Jinwoo concedes that most of their knights look like grizzled veterans rather than pretty boys, reflecting on how they must make the players fall in love with Arsalan and immerse them completely to make them fight the erosion. Pointing out that Prince Leon is at the center of this strategy, Jinwoo wonders if there's really no other way, to which the elf giggles and hints that there actually is. Jinwoo turns around to spot Tyrus walking toward them with an elegant posture. Tyrus giggles mischievously and suggests they can simply construct a body and have Jinwoo pilot it, pointing out his high skill in swordsmanship, which makes Jinwoo sweat as he suspects she is just satisfying her own desires. Jinwoo sighs and admits the idea isn't bad, suggesting they make the body based on the concept art first before discussing details, but Tyrus smugly asks who he takes her for. With a creepy, proud expression, Tyrus reveals that she has already finished the body and creepily invites them to follow her, catching Jinwoo and Tia completely off guard. Stepping into a lavishly decorated room, Jinwoo and Tia look around in shock at the numerous lifelike figures, with Jinwoo muttering that the place is as creepy as ever. Tyrus proudly introduces a small, adorable chibi doll with animal ears sitting on a chair, explaining she designed the chibi version of her master to be perfectly huggable. Tia holds up the chibi doll in adoration, squealing about its squishy cheeks and begging Jinwoo to transfer into it just once, which Jinwoo flatly refuses. Tia dramatically hugs Jinwoo's staff and pleads with him, promising to give him so much love, while a deadpan Jinwoo retorts that her intense affection is exactly why he would probably suffocate to death. Turning back to business, Tyrus gestures toward a large chair draped in a heavy red cloth, announcing that Prince Leon's body is over there. Holding up her hand dramatically, Tyrese tells them to prepare themselves, leaving a bewildered Jinwoo to wonder why. With a confident grin, Tyrus grabs the edge of the red cloth, proudly declaring that she has finally achieved it. With a dramatic flourish, Tyrus whips the red cloth off to reveal what she describes as an otherworldly, divine beauty. Blinding golden light erupts from the chair, forcing Jinwoo and Tia to shield their eyes in absolute shock. Brilliant rays of light completely envelop the majestic figure sitting on the throne, radiating an awe-inspiring presence. Sweating profusely, Tia stares ahead with her eyes wide open in complete disbelief. Tia cries and drools in ecstatic joy, declaring the body is even more perfect than the Leon she imagined, while Tyrus boasts that she worked for a month straight to craft this powerful body using dragon bone and synthetic fibers. Tyrus explains that she spent every penny of her own money and hired 12 master dwarves to craft the masterpiece gear using Helby scales. Jinwoo breaks into a cold sweat as a terrifying silhouette of Helby looms in his mind, nervously wondering how Tyrus managed to get Helby's scales without a fight. Seating himself on his throne, Jinwoo decides it is time to test if the connection works. A brilliant surge of blue digital energy and magical lightning crackles between Jinwoo and the knight on the chair as the connection test begins. Back in the virtual world, the connection test finishes with crackles of lightning, leaving Tia and Tyrus completely mesmerized and blushing at the majestic sight. Prince Leon slowly opens his eyes, revealing a pair of piercing, brilliant blue eyes beneath his silver hair as he wakes up. Meanwhile, in the bustling city of Seoul, a text box marks the countdown, noting there are only 10 minutes left before the official launch of Arsalan Saga. Against the backdrop of towering modern city skyscrapers, a voiceover introduces the normal, standard version of the Soul Link device. Habiel, a popular streamer with over 3 million subscribers, enthusiastically shows off her brand new connection device to her excited chat who is flooded with comments. Sitting at her desk, Haybell explains to her chat that she got the normal version just in case the game turns out to be a scam, all while comments roll in calling her a sucker. Smiling widely, Haybell puts on the sleek, futuristic VR goggles, laughing as she discovers that the streaming chat floats directly in front of her eyes in streaming mode. Suddenly, a notification blares and a digital display showing 10 o'clock appears before her eyes, signaling that it is finally 10 o'clock. Haybell gasps as the connection screen lights up, prompting her to lean back comfortably in her chair and prepare to log in to see if this virtual reality is actually real. Gripping her controller and taking a deep breath, Haybell says she is pressing the button and logging into the game. With a sudden flash of blinding light, digital energy surges around Haybell's room, pulling her consciousness straight into the network. Letting out a scream, Haybell is pulled through a digital void that quickly transitions into a magnificent room centering around a giant glowing blue magic crystal. Inside the magic tower, the administrators watch the crystal erupt with magic, enthusiastically declaring that the very first hero has arrived and ordering everyone to begin the process. Opening her eyes with a soft groan, Haybell blinks in confusion as she begins to wake up in a completely unfamiliar space. Finding herself floating in a cosmic, star-filled space with digital screens hovering around her, Haybell looks around in absolute shock and wonders where she is. Realizing she is actually inside a virtual reality environment, Haybell excitedly yells to her streaming viewers that the game is real, gesturing toward a floating character customization screen. Haybell touches a digital panel displaying the selectable races, which include human, elf, dwarf, and orc. Swooping through the virtual customizer, Haybell enthusiastically selects the elf race, jokingly deciding to buff her character's chest size a little bit. With a firm step, a pair of blue leather boots land softly on a lush green grassy field as the player materializes in Arsalan. Striking a cute pose in a vibrant green forest, Haybell spins around and proudly tells her viewers that she is successfully transformed into an elf. Gazing out at a magnificent medieval castle rising in the distance, Haybell wonders if this breathtaking scenery is indeed the starting area of Arsalan. Squealing in absolute delight, Haybell clutches her cheeks in pure joy as she takes in the hyper-realistic fantasy environment, while her chat goes wild in disbelief. Squealing in joy, Haybell wonders where she should go next, completely unaware of a massive armored figure stepping up behind her. Pointing a gauntleted finger into the distance, a helpful knight tells her that the starting village event is located in that direction, catching her off guard. Turning around with wide eyes, Haybell is instantly captivated as she looks up at the incredibly handsome knight standing before her. Smiling gently against the clear blue sky, the handsome knight asks if she would like to go with him if she doesn't know the way, leaving Haybell blushing furiously. With an otherworldly, divine smile, the blonde knight introduces himself as Prince Leon, captivating everyone who looks at him. Entering Event Village, the bustling cobblestone streets are filled with all kinds of diverse adventurers running around, climbing buildings, and starting their journeys. In the village square, adventurers are seen celebrating and shouting praises to Jinwoo, while others look to party up and level together. A role player dressed in traditional Muram martial artist clothes approaches a Mohawk sporting player, dramatically explaining he was in mortal combat with the Heavenly Demon before waking up here. Looking around at the lively, crowded town square, Haybell is amazed by the sheer number of players, deciding she should ask a nearby town guard for directions. Waving her hand with a bright, cheerful smile, Haybell enthusiastically greets the guard, who turns around in shock and nervously welcomes her. Sweating profusely, the guard reminds himself to keep it natural and behave exactly as they practiced to maintain immersion. Striking a proud and welcoming pose, the guard enthusiastically welcomes her to Avent and asks her to state her name. Flashing a peace sign with a cute, fanged grin, Haybell happily declares her streamer nickname, Haybell, as her official character name. A system window pops up above her head, humorously notifying her that her agility has been reduced due to her overly developed upper body. Shocked by how lifelike and natural the guard's behavior is, Haybell asks if he is a player, but the guard simply repeats his scripted line, convincing her he is a genuine NPC. Looking for things to do, Haybell asks the guard if he has any quests for her, prompting him to praise her eagerness as a true hero. Pointing toward a grand, dome-shaped building, the guard directs her to the Adventurer Guild, which immediately lights up before her eyes. Reading through her streaming chat, Haybell sees her viewers begging her to find the handsome blonde knight from earlier, agreeing that his looks were out of this world. Haybell remembers that the handsome knight left as soon as they reached the village entrance, and judging by his appearance, she assumes he must be an NPC. Looking around at the players running through the village streets, Haybell cheerfully reasons that they are bound to run into him again if they keep doing quests. Floating high in the sky and holding his glowing magical staff, Jinwoo smiles confidently, noting that the player's reaction to Leon is excellent and that Tyrus will be thrilled. Activating his magical vision, Jinwoo prepares to inspect the player's soul power to see if there are any useful traits among them. Jinwoo reflects on how traits represent the identity of a person's soul, explaining that choosing a path in Arsalan that aligns with their trait allows for rapid growth. Scanning the crowd, Jinwoo notes with a sigh that most players only possess standard E rank or D rank traits. Suddenly, Jinwoo's eyes widen in surprise as he spots an exceptionally bright blue aura surrounding Habel, revealing she has an A-rank trait called Affinity. Jinwoo realizes that Hybiel's years of streaming forged this rare trait, which allows her to easily befriend not just people, but also mana, holy power, and spirits. Arriving at the event branch of the Adventurer Guild, Hybiel nervously peeks through the wooden double doors, wondering if this is the right place. Stepping inside the lavish guild lobby, Hybiel looks around in awe at the elegant interior, just as a beautiful, busty elf receptionist warmly welcomes her to the event branch of the Adventurer Guild. Streaming viewers flood the chat with comments praising Hybiel, jokingly calling her an angel elf Nuna who isn't even human. In a close-up, a hand uses a golden quill pen to write carefully on a piece of vintage parchment. Smiling warmly, the busty elf receptionist places a heavy sack on the desk, explaining that Hybiel is now an Iron Rank adventurer and listing her basic support items and weapon. Squealing with delight, Hybiel receives a gentle head pat from the beautiful receptionist, sending her streaming chat into an absolute frenzy of jealousy. Floating high above the medieval town square, Jinwoo looks down thoughtfully while holding his glowing, winged magical staff. Jinwoo smiles to himself, thinking how cute the new player Hybiel is, and admitting that meeting her makes him want to tease her. Tia, the guild receptionist, clutches her cheeks in absolute excitement, drooling as she confesses she can't wait to see the cute summoned heroes break down in tears, though Jinwoo warns her she hasn't met the veteran players yet. A hairy bare leg steps firmly onto the carpeted floor as a text box questions what indeed a veteran player is. A muscular, shirtless role player with bright pink pigtails and a mustache stands proudly, loudly declaring his arrival and demanding plain noodles and bamboo leaf liquor. Shocked and completely bewildered, the guild receptionist Tia stares blankly with question marks floating around her head. Tia watches in horror as the bizarre role players run around acting wild and calling the game trash, frantically trying to contact Jinwoo, only for him to wish her good luck. Inside the guild hall, complete chaos erupts as weird players start eating quest forms and rolling downstairs, earning one of them the useless title of prankster for flustering Tia. Dropping to her knees under a lone spotlight, a sweat-drenched and utterly defeated Tia chuckles weakly in despair. Clutching her sleeve tightly, Tia hardens her resolve, whispering that she will make sure to stay strong just to see the moment these broken heroes shed tears of despair. With a wild, sweating, and terrifyingly creepy grin, Tia declares that if she can witness their absolute despair, she can tolerate any amount of player nonsense. Breaking news headlines flood the screens, announcing that FS Games' virtual reality game has been confirmed as real, and that the entire world is about to change. Standing under a bright spotlight, a remorseful internet critic bows deeply to the public, offering a sincere apology for constantly doubting Lee Jinwoo and posting out-of-line comments. In a brightly lit newsroom, two TV anchors enthusiastically discuss how Arsalan Saga has become such a massive global sensation that countries are rushing to air special broadcasts. In a high-tech boardroom, a presenter points at data charts, explaining to executives that joining Arsalan Saga is a destiny they must accept or risk being left behind forever. Walking into his office with a bright, confident smile, a handsome corporate executive warmly greets his staff as they welcome him back. A colleague asks the executive if he saw the massive protest and demand trucks parked outside, to which he calmly replies that there were quite a lot of them again today. The colleague laughs while holding his coffee, explaining that even the youngest staff members had to turn off their phones because of the endless flood of calls begging for a SoulLink device. Floating against a blue digital backdrop, a futuristic SoulLink headset is shown as the executive confirms that the second pre-order of 50,000 units will proceed as scheduled. In a dramatic close-up, the executive's eyes narrow with determination as he reflects that 50,000 heroes will finally allow them to carry out the first erosion subjugation. With a joyful grin, the executive announces it is time to roll out the main story update, prompting his staff to excitedly celebrate that Prince Leon is finally making his official debut. Office workers eagerly present merchandise proposals for Prince Leon, enthusiastically listing keyrings, acrylic stands, body pillows, and figures ready for production. Looking at his reflection in a tall mirror, Prince Leon strokes his chin in wool armor, nervously wondering if he is really that popular. Smiling brightly against a glowing golden background, Leon strikes a handsome pose, admiring his own otherworldly good looks. Suddenly, Tyrus walks right in and proudly tells Leon he seems completely captivated by himself, causing a sweaty Leon to yell at her to knock before entering. Leaning in close, Tyrus dramatically whispers that Leon looks like a sorrowful traveler carrying a heavy burden, prompting Leon to dryly ask why she is trying to roleplay. With a swift, elegant spin, Tyrus dramatically displays her pose, leaving Leon staring in complete surprise. Looming close to Leon's face with a dark, intense look, Tyrus whispers dramatically about his tragic and melancholic eyes, leaving him sweating in absolute silence. A beautiful dream sequence unfolds with Leon posing elegantly amidst blossoming red roses, while a dialogue box urges the hero to listen to his story. Holding his forehead in exhaustion, Leon asks Tyrus if there is a high-quality hunting ground nearby to help the players level up, to which she replies there should be plenty beyond the eroded lands. Leon walks away with a sharp, determined look, quietly deciding he will just have to borrow some power from Jinwoo, leaving Tyrus confused. In a dark, eerie setting, a close-up shows a figure's black boots walking steadily across a red-stained ground. Standing before a massive, swirling tempest of purple dark energy and magical lightning, a lone wizard holds up his staff. High above the cloudy, dark sky, an ominous blood-red full moon glows intensely. Surrounded by cracking blue lightning, the blue-haired mage Jinwoo unleashes a powerful magical barrier to defend against the encroaching dark purple tentacles. Channeling blue energy around his face, Jinwoo remarks with a serious expression that the place is as creepy as ever. Raising his staff toward the turbulent sky, Jinwoo notes with a confident smirk that no one has come out to greet their guest yet. With a determined look, Jinwoo holds up his glowing magical staff and playfully whispers, "Knock knock." A massive, blinding explosion of orange fire and white energy erupts across the dark landscape, obliterating everything in its path. From behind Jinwoo, a massive beam of light hits the canyon as a system window displays the high-tier magic spell, Doorbell. A massive vortex of dark purple energy swirls open, revealing a gigantic, creepy mouth with a massive white grin that mockingly welcomes the visitor. A terrifying, towering monster with dozens of glaring red eyes and a massive grin looms over Jinwoo, identified as the Lord of Erosion, asking if the mage has come to offer his soul. A dark flashback reveals the tragic fate of Ella's priests and holy knights, who were defeated, had their souls torn to shreds, and became eternal slaves to the Erosion Core. Jinwoo is shown fighting a desperate, lonely battle in a chaotic dark dimension, reflecting on his past defeat against the overwhelming darkness. Smiling mockingly, the Lord of Erosion towers over Jinwoo, telling him to accept his fate and wondering how much longer his pathetic barrier can protect him. In a tight close-up, the blue-haired mage simply smirks with absolute confidence, completely unfazed by the giant monster's threats. Looking down at Lee Jinwoo, the towering, multi-eyed Lord of Erosion angrily questions what is so funny, to which Jinwoo calmly replies that he simply feels sorry for him. Jinwoo confidently explains that the Lord of Erosion cannot move from the center of his own territory, mockingly adding that he might be able to if he consumed more land and evolved, but for now, he is completely stuck. Enraged by the mockery, the massive monster roars and asks if Jinwoo came all this way just to tease him, but Jinwoo begins walking away, dryly replying that he isn't that free. Looking down at a vast valley filled with dark purple structures and monsters, Jinwoo searches the area before confidently murmuring that he has finally found them. A system window describes a level 10 corrupted goblin as a creature consumed by erosion, completely corrupted and harboring a deep hatred for all living things. The Lord of Erosion chuckles mockingly, telling Jinwoo that destroying the goblins is completely useless because they will quickly regenerate within the erosion no matter how powerful his magic is. Firmly gripping his wooden staff, Jinwoo replies with a calm smirk that the monster's words would only hold true if he were fighting completely alone. Activating his magic, Jinwoo stands proudly at the center of a massive, brilliantly glowing blue magic circle as lightning crackles intensely around him. A colossal blue magic crest expands across the entire sky and the surrounding canyon under the ominous red moon, unleashing massive bolts of blue lightning. Powerful bolts of blue space magic strike down directly upon the corrupted goblins, enveloping them in blinding flashes of light. Watching the magic unfold, the Lord of Erosion is completely taken aback and frantically demands to know why the mage is using high-level space magic. Waving a casual goodbye, a chibi Jinwoo playfully tells the enraged monster that he is borrowing the goblins and urges him to restock since he isn't using them anyway. Jinwoo adds with a smirk that the Lord of Erosion is now officially the mid-boss of Episode 1 in the Arsalan Saga main quest, wishing him luck and expecting a great performance. Suddenly, Jinwoo stops in his tracks as if remembering something important. Clenching his fist with a smug smile, Jinwoo remarks that since he borrowed something, it is only fair that he pays the monster back. While the giant monster looks on in complete confusion, Jinwoo smugly holds up a pixelated middle finger and tells him to keep the change. Realizing he has been insulted, the Lord of Erosion screams in absolute vein-popping fury, calling Jinwoo a bastard. Towering black tentacles slam violently down on Jinwoo's blue magical barrier as the monster screams that he will kill the mage, though Jinwoo remains completely unfazed inside his shield. A transition title screen displays the golden title, I Made the Ruined World Mistaken for a Game, set against a bright cloud-filled sky. In a lush green forest, a party of 3 players, including the shirtless level 5 warrior Namgung Plain Noodles, the level 4 mage Buldojong, and the level 3 elf Habiel, enthusiastically head out on a goblin hunt, excited to have finally received a real quest. Walking firmly down the dirt path, Namgung confidently assures his party members that the goblins should be showing up any moment now. Suddenly, a thick, eerie purple mist sweeps across the path, causing the 3 adventurers to stop in surprise. Abel looks up nervously as the forest suddenly plunges into darkness, while her streaming chat window fills with viewers' worried and playful comments. A purple corrupted goblin steps forward with a heavy thud, snarling menacingly as Habiel panics and warns her party that it is a goblin. Staring at the massive, mutated creature, Namgung wonders in surprise why the goblin is so huge and purple, questioning if it might be an elite mob. Glowing with red eyes, the terrifying mutated goblin unleashes a deafening, saliva-dripping roar. Drawing his sword with a confident, dramatic pose, Namgung declares that the monster is still just a pathetic beast and vows to finish it off in 3 forms. Before Namgung can even react, the goblin leaps through the air with terrifying speed, wielding a massive rusty blade. In a tight close-up, Namgung's eye widens in absolute shock as he realizes the monster's speed is completely overwhelming. With a swift, brutal slash, the goblin instantly defeats Namgung and sends him crashing face-first into the dirt, leaving his teammates completely frozen in shock. Hardening his resolve, Buldojang steps forward with his staff engulfed in raging flames, shouting in anger as he unleashes a fireball. A massive, roaring torrent of fire engulfs the forest path, completely swallowing the mutated goblin in an explosion of heat. As the smoke clears, Buldojang grins confidently, asking if they managed to defeat the beast, while the streaming chat reacts with extreme concern. Suddenly, a purple shadow cuts through the smoke with blinding, instantaneous speed. Before Buldojang can even react, he is slashed across the chest and sent flying through the air, prompting his streaming viewers to hilariously question if he is actually stupid. Left all alone, Habiel trembles with her bow drawn, nervously asking if her allies are dead as the chat frantically warns her to run or do something. Staring in sheer horror as several glowing-eyed corrupted goblins slowly close in on her, Habiel realizes that these are definitely not normal goblins and that they stand no chance of winning. Screeching loudly, a giant mutated goblin leaps directly at the defenseless, panicking elf. Closing her eyes in sheer terror, Habiel screams at the top of her lungs as the monster's blade descends. Suddenly, a brilliant, blinding golden slash tears through the darkness of the forest. A powerful golden sword strike perfectly intercepts the attack, cutting through the mutated goblin in a single clean motion. The giant goblin is cleanly sliced in half, letting out a final, confused squeal as its torso slides off. Slowly opening her eyes in surprise, Habiel looks up to find a mysterious knight in a blue hooded cloak standing heroically before her. Underneath the hood, the handsome knight smiles warmly at her, gently whispering, "Again, hero." Revealing his dazzlingly handsome face, Prince Leon smiles brilliantly at a blushing Habiel and asks if she is all right. The narrator explains that the world's finest luxury watches run on complex, meticulously designed parts that interlock precisely to operate without a single error, proving their high value. Golden electric sparks gather around a hand as the narrator notes that Prince Leon's body is crafted in the exact same flawless manner. Tyrus chants powerful magic as the status window reveals that Leon's body was crafted as a flawless vessel intricately woven with 24 high-level spells, including an A-rank trait that turns dust into petals. Leon's handsome portrait is shown alongside descriptions of his active spells, including a brilliant halo that adjusts to observer emotions and a pervasive fragrance tailored to the target's taste, with 21 other active spells. Looking completely mesmerized, a chibi Habiel shields her eyes from the blinding golden light, drooling as she in awe calls him incredibly dazzling. Realizing she was caught staring, Habiel is snapped out of her daze by a viewer's donation message telling her to stop drooling over the handsome knight, making her frantically try to gather her composure. Prince Leon leans in incredibly close, surrounded by a sparkling, handsome aura, and gently asks if she is hurt, leaving the flustered elf completely speechless while her stream chat teases her. Haybell nervously squeals that she is perfectly fine, but Prince Leon insists on being safe and extends his hand to cast a warm, golden healing spell on her. As a brilliant high-tier recovery magic envelops her, Haybell gasps in amazement while her stream viewers watch in awe, commenting on how incredible and rare the magic is. Staring at her glowing hands, Haybell realizes that although she wasn't even injured, the high-level spell has left her feeling incredibly energized. Suddenly, another donation notification pops up as a viewer named Audrey Hatband contributes 100,000 won to enthusiastically declare their love for Leon. Thrilled by the generous support, Haybell excitedly delivers her 100K donation reaction, enthusiastically offering 10 consecutive cute winks with a bright, blushing smile. Hearing the bizarre and cute streamer speech, Prince Leon stands completely dumbfounded and frozen, leaving a grayed-out chibi Haybell sweating in deep embarrassment. Misinterpreting her strange streamer reaction, Prince Leon gently places a hand on her head and offers to treat her suspected head injury, causing Haybell to frantically wave her arms in denial. High-reward missions flood her stream chat, promising massive cash rewards if she performs her cute bunny reaction in front of Leon, but Haybell adamantly refuses to embarrass herself any further. Observing the lucrative stream missions from behind Leon's handsome avatar, the real player Jinwoo narrows his eyes with a mischievous smirk, wondering if he should play a little prank on her. Suddenly, a massive donation alert from Jinwoo's in-game alias, Mage, appears on screen, sponsoring the bunny reaction mission with a colossal reward of 5 million won, causing Haybell to gasp in absolute shock. Overwhelmed by the irresistible power of 5 million won, a deeply conflicted and red-faced Haybell reluctantly raises her hands to form bunny ears. Throwing her pride aside for the prize money, Haybell begins jumping up and down, blushing furiously as she performs her adorable bunny dance right in front of Prince Leon. With tears of embarrassment in her eyes, Haybell continues hopping around reciting her cute bunny chant as the bewildered knight watches in silent confusion. Utterly mortified by what she just did, Haybell covers her face and runs away screaming, leaving Jinwoo to silently marvel at the absolute power of money and capitalism. Still deeply concerned about her mental state, Prince Leon kindly offers to escort her to a temple to treat her head properly, while Haybell desperately cries out that she is perfectly fine. The legendary stream moment quickly goes viral, becoming the top clip of the year across the entire platform as viewers share the hilarious video of Haybell's 5 million won bunny dance. Against the dark night sky of Arsalan, the title screen transition displays as Haybell quietly follows Prince Leon through the forest, admiring his handsome back with a dreamy sigh. Prince Leon walks calmly through the silent, moonlit woods, his elegant and perfectly sculpted side profile glowing under the starry sky. Stopping in his tracks, Prince Leon turns back with a dazzling, comforting smile and softly cautions her to watch her step. Haybell's heart flutters as she blushes deeply and stammers her thanks, while her stream viewers continue to drool over Leon, debating whether his unmatched stats make him a major hidden NPC. Reassuring his companion, Prince Leon calmly explains that they have traveled far enough and that the corrupted goblins won't be able to pursue them here. Bowing deeply in gratitude, Haybell formally introduces herself, and Leon politely introduces himself in return as a simple traveler. Leon explains that his travels around the world investigating the spreading erosion are what led him to discover the mutated, corrupted goblins appearing near Eden. Looking serious, Leon warns that a dark conspiracy may be unfolding despite the protective mana barrier, confirming to a shocked Haybell that the goblin's grotesque purple color is a direct result of the erosion. Activating his observation magic, Leon's eyes glow blue as he reviews Haybell's impressive profile history, confidently realizing her A-rank affinity will make her the perfect leader to rally an expeditionary force. Declaring that his own strength is not enough, Leon formally requests Haybell's help to subjugate the corrupted goblins, triggering a high-difficulty main quest window on her screen. Haybell is completely stunned to realize she has just unlocked a major main quest that requires recruiting a massive subjugation force of over 200 players. Looking up at the sky, she anxiously wonders how it will be possible to gather 200 players, since most players are currently busy with low-level tasks like gathering herbs or traveling. In the peaceful fields, players are indeed fully absorbed in their own leisurely activities, such as a player with a flat-top haircut happily picking a strange eyeball-shaped herb. Despite her worries, Haybell clenches her fist with fierce determination, vowing to succeed simply because the dashing Prince Leon requested her help directly. With a sudden, dramatic motion, Haybell firmly grabs Prince Leon's gauntleted hand, startling the knight with her burning passion. Holding his hand tightly with both of hers, a blushing and fiercely determined Haybale shouts that she will absolutely gather the force and save Eden, while Leon looks on in quiet gratitude. Leaping into action to help the players, Prince Leon charges heroically with his sword drawn, promising to cover and protect the heroes. Leon selflessly assists other players in their battles, cutting down wild beasts with his powerful golden slashes as the grateful adventurers shout their thanks. He even helps players with mundane tasks, warmly praising a red-haired female player for her impressive herb gathering, leaving her blushing happily at his sweet words. To further win over the community, Leon generously hands out a large sack filled with valuable potions and useful items to the players. A group of lower-level players is deeply touched by his kindness, receiving the free items with wide eyes and asking if he is sure he wants to give away everything he has. Prince Leon smiles brilliantly and reassuringly tells them that it is quite all right because, in the end, he still has all of them. Soon, the online gaming community is flooded with incredibly heartwarming stories about Leon, prompting a closed-off, reclusive user to share how Leon's words gave them courage. Inspired by Leon calling his players heroes, the reclusive player finds the strength to leave their dark room for the first time in 5 years, shocking their mother. Embracing her crying mother tightly, the daughter sheds tears of regret, deeply moved that her mother blamed herself for her long-term isolation. Fully geared up in shining warrior armor, the girl proudly steps out into the bright world, determined to act like a real hero and help other players, while the online community praises the incredible positive impact of the game. Back in the real world, the player Jinwoo sits comfortably in front of his dual monitors, smiling with satisfaction at how motivated the player base has become. Stepping out of his gaming chair, Jinwoo decides it is time to accelerate his grand plan a bit further. Dressed in his grand, dark mage attire, Jinwoo walks down the dark stone stairs with a focused, serious look as his magical staff glows brightly. With a heavy creak, the massive, golden-embellished double doors of a grand temple sanctuary slowly swing open. Jinwoo enters a colossal, high-tech magical sanctuary humming with blue energy, where a beautiful blonde elf assistant stands ready to receive him. Looking up with a gentle, welcoming expression, the blonde elf assistant softly greets Jinwoo, welcoming her master back. Looking down from above, the Archmage Jinwoo asks about the status of the control device, and the beautiful blonde elf assistant confirms that it is perfectly connected to the magic tower, allowing them to control everything from their location. Feeling the immense energy of the erosion core surging through the makeshift core, Jinwoo notes with a serious expression that frequent goblin attacks will quickly prompt the players to assemble their subjugation force. Turning to his assistant, Jinwoo commands Tia to bring Hazemun, Halon, and the other key NPCs to his chamber, leaving her to curiously wonder about the purpose of their sudden summoning. With a mischievous and sinister grin, Jinwoo reveals his playful yet calculated plan to have them control the goblins themselves. Halon and Hazemun arrive, eagerly declaring their readiness to assist Arsalan with everything in their power, but Jinwoo sweatily begs them to step back and stop shoving their overly intense faces directly into his. Turning to Jinwoo, Halon and Hazemun ask what their task is, but Jinwoo realizes Tyrus hasn't informed them yet and decides to explain everything once Tia arrives. Suddenly, Tia pops up directly next to Jinwoo's face, scaring him half to death as she softly announces her presence. Clutching his staff in shock, Jinwoo angrily yells at Tia for startling him, asking if popping up out of nowhere is some kind of new trend. Noticing her exhausted state as she collapses face down onto the sofa, Jinwoo curiously asks what happened to her and why she looks so completely drained. Lifting her head slightly, Tia lets out a bitter laugh, asking if he really has to ask what happened. Tia hysterically vents her frustration, crying out about how the magic tower keeps assigning useless titles while the players constantly pull absurd pranks, steal her things, and act completely bizarrely right in front of her. Shouting frantically, Tia demands that Jinwoo stop wasting precious mana crystal energy on useless things, forcing a sweat-dropping Jinwoo to quickly raise his hands and apologize. Hoping to divert the tension, Jinwoo nervously chuckles and asks Halon and Hazemun how things have been going on their end. Looking deeply depressed, the two men explain that players suspect them of being evil masterminds or goblin masters just from their naturally intimidating faces, whispering about whether they should kill them on the spot. An awkward silence falls over the room as the four subordinates sit on the couch surrounded by a dark, gloomy aura, leaving Jinwoo staring at them speechlessly. Sitting up, Tia asks why they were summoned, and when Jinwoo asks Tyrus why she didn't tell them beforehand, Tyrus calmly replies that she wanted to see their miserable reactions firsthand. Jinwoo reaches into his robes and pulls out a sleek, modern-looking game controller, presenting it to his subordinates. In response to their confusion, Jinwoo explains that it is a controller used to command the goblins, and he wants them to use it to help the players farm combat experience. Horrified, Tia tearfully protests against having to control such filthy, disgusting monsters and getting beaten up by players, but Jinwoo explains that provoking the players is necessary to speed up the subjugation force. Jinwoo reassures her that they won't actually be the ones getting hurt, explaining that the heroes are soul visitors who can resurrect, so they should go all out and give him a real challenging fight. Hearing this, Tia's expression instantly shifts as a menacing aura surrounds her, and she gleefully mutters that those annoying heroes are dead meat, leaving a sweating Jinwoo to wonder if he misheard her. Looking curiously at the device in her hands, Tia remarks on its strange appearance, and Jinwoo offers to explain how to use it. Jinwoo points out the directional pad on the left for movement and the buttons on the right for actions, reassuring them that the magic tower will handle the precise calculations to keep it simple. Activating a magical display, Jinwoo prepares to pull up the game screen so she can test the controls. Sweating nervously, Tia carefully holds the controller and gently presses the buttons, asking if she is doing it correctly. On the screen, a corrupted purple goblin leaps forward and starts running, prompting Tia to gasp in excitement as she realizes it actually moved. Thrilled by the responsive controls, Tia happily declares that this is incredibly fascinating, while Jinwoo smiles and praises her natural gaming talent as she promises to thoroughly provoke the players. Looking over her shoulder, Hasman curiously asks if it is fun, and Tia replies with a dark, creepy smile that it is quite satisfying since she has always wanted to control a mindless puppet. Eager to join in, Halen coughs and mentions that he has plenty of free time and specializes in strategy, prompting a laughing Jinwoo to hand out controllers to everyone. The four subordinates sit side by side on the sofa, laughing joyfully as they play together, with Halon happily celebrating that he is no longer alone. Staring at the screen, they laugh at how ugly the goblins are, noting that looking at them makes them feel much better about their own faces, while Jinwoo looks on speechlessly. Smiling warmly at his companions, Jinwoo raises his fingers to form a camera frame and activates his magical capture tool. Bright Flash captures the wonderful moment of his four subordinates laughing and playing games together on the couch. Back in the real world, Jinwoo holds his smartphone, smiling as he looks at the heartwarming photo of his game characters set as his lock screen background. Staring at his phone screen, Jinwoo lets out a soft, satisfied chuckle. Jinwoo notes that once the players defeat the corrupted goblins, they will fully realize the gravity of the Erosion Legion's invasion, paving the way for his grand strategy. Jinwoo sits at a grand dinner table, calculating that launching the second round of Soul Link sales right on cue will yield massive success. Suddenly, Jinwoo's parents stand up and bow deeply before him at the dinner table, catching him completely off guard. Looking incredibly apologetic and tearful, they remain bowed in deep guilt, leaving Jinwoo sitting in absolute silence. They solemnly walk away from the massive dining hall, leaving Jinwoo sitting all alone at the empty, luxurious table. Holding his spoon in midair, a sweat-dropping Jinwoo looks around the empty room, completely bewildered by their sudden and bizarre behavior. Back in the game world, players in the bustling town square are shouting at the top of their lungs, recruiting allies to join the urgent goblin subjugation quest. The plaza is flooded with furious players shouting about the subjugation quest, swearing vengeance, and crying over their lost herbs and meat that took 10 hours of hard work to farm. Walking through the crowded city square, Jinwoo stares in complete disbelief at the massive, chaotic gathering of players surrounding the hero statue. Looking completely shell-shocked, Jinwoo sweats profusely as he anxiously wonders what on earth is happening to make the players so incredibly angry. Out in the forest, a corrupted purple goblin leaps through the air with glowing eyes, swinging a massive club with a wild, menacing laugh. A player tank yells for Tyrus to back him up as he charges forward, and the magic-wielding player quickly responds that she is on it. The player tank screams in absolute disbelief as the goblin suddenly casts a high-level fire spell directly at his shield, leaving the team completely shocked by a magic-using goblin. Another purple goblin moves with blinding speed, slamming a powerful spear down with tremendous force to shatter the player's defenses. Back in the sanctuary, a highly amused Tia laughs maniacally while rapidly pressing buttons on her controller, thoroughly enjoying the absolute chaos she is causing for the players. Tia high-fives Tyrus, celebrating their nice combination, while Jinwoo stands behind them with a flat expression, muttering that he knew it was them. Looking completely drained with dark circles around her eyes, Tia turns around with a manic grin and greets Lord Jinwoo. Jinwoo notices his subordinates' faces look completely exhausted, wondering if they have been playing non-stop as the four of them laugh maniacally on the couch with a menacing purple aura. Sweating slightly, Jinwoo wonders if he's just imagining things, since it looks less like they are helping the heroes and more like they are actively tormenting them. When Tia gleefully yells about defeating another stupid hero, Jinwoo's face darkens as he realizes they are definitely tormenting the players. Observing the screen, Jinwoo is shocked to see the goblin's info update to a level 10 Red Ribbon Hero Slayer, while a manic Tia laughs and commands them to die. Reading the combat log showing several players recently defeated, Jinwoo stares in horror at the level 10 goblin standing atop a pile of dead players, wondering just how many heroes they've killed to earn the Hero Slayer title. Tyrus quietly reminds Tia that it's time for that, prompting an excited Tia to realize she almost forgot about an important part as Hasmond grins widely behind them. A player lies face down on the ground as the leg of the corrupted purple goblin steps into frame next to them. The purple goblin maliciously steps directly onto the back of the defeated player's head. The purple goblin repeatedly squats up and down directly over the defeated player, mocking them in an infamous gaming gesture. Outraged players point in absolute disbelief, screaming in fury as they realize the goblins are actually teabagging their defeated teammate. Red-faced and laughing maniacally, Tia mockingly asks the heroes what they are going to do about it, shouting that they can do absolutely nothing. Watching them play, Jinwoo's sweat drops and speechlessly wonders where on earth his subordinates learned to do such a toxic gesture. Smiling sheepishly, Jinwoo notes to himself that at the very least, it certainly gets the players fired up. Jinwoo reflects that his plan worked even better than expected as a huge, noisy crowd of players raises their weapons in the town square. The Goblin Subjugation Force is assembled and organized much faster than Jinwoo anticipated, with a sea of angry players gathered in the town. Clenching his fist and tightening his glove, the blonde player Leon smiles confidently, declaring that the real game is about to begin. Dressed in full, shining armor and a flowing cape, Leon proudly walks forward under the bright sunlight. Turning back with a handsome, confident grin, Leon asks his party if they are ready to go. A blacksmith looks seriously at his friend, asking Uragam if he is really determined to see things through to the bitter end.
Cracking his knuckles confidently, Uragam tells the blacksmith to stop talking and just start, prompting Thompson to chuckle at his friend's confidence.
Thompson challenges Uragam to keep that confident look on his face, letting out a loud shout as he slams his hammer down onto the shield with a resounding clang. The shield on the workbench erupts in a blinding, radiant golden light during the enhancement process. Suddenly, a loud explosion erupts from the workbench, filling the room with smoke and fire. Thompson sweatily laughs and claims his hand slipped, while a system message pops up announcing an enhancement failure, dropping Uragam's iron shield from 4 to 3. Thompson laughs and says Uragam is lucky the shield didn't break entirely, but Uragam clutches his head in absolute despair, screaming over the loss of his 4 shield. Walking into the workshop, the elf archer Habiel asks Uragam if he is really doing enhancements right before their expedition, while a weeping Uragam begs her for comfort. Looking thoroughly unimpressed, Habiel calls Uragam a dopamine addict, pointing out that he barely succeeded in getting it to 4 after 20 tries just the other day. Habiel warns him that the success rate for a 5 enhancement is only 5%, but a crazed Uragam screams that it's not enough and that he needs a much bigger hit of dopamine. Thompson laughs mockingly at Uragam, teasing him that he has pretty weak guts for a hero if he's giving up already. Completely baited, Uragam yells to go one more time and bets his entire fortune, while the shield itself sheds a tear in fear, and Habiel anxiously warns them that they are about to march. Leon approaches the workshop, calling out to Habiel, who turns around in surprise while Uragam is still sulking in the background. Greeting him warmly, Habiel calls out to Leon, who walks over with a friendly smile, commenting on how much she has grown since they last met. Habiel happily asks what brings him there, and Leon explains that he was looking around the village to see how things are before heading out for the goblin subjugation. Looking at Leon surrounded by a sparkling flower-filled background, an adoring Habiel gushes over how incredibly sweet he is. Suddenly, a desperate Uragam jumps out from behind them and loudly yells Leon's name, startling Habiel half to death. Clinging to Leon, Uragam desperately begs for his help, leaving a confused Leon to ask Habiel who this is. Habiel introduces Uragam as their party's tank, explaining with a sigh that he is a complete enhancement addict. Leon politely asks how he can help, and Uragam excitedly tells him to just stand right there, prompting an exasperated Habiel to ask if he's really using Leon as a lucky totem. Uragam eagerly tells Thompson to begin, and the blacksmith gives a confident thumbs up in agreement. With Leon standing calmly by his side, Uragam closes his eyes and prays intensely as the enhancement process begins. Thompson lets out a mighty shout, raising his heavy hammer high over his head with absolute focus. The heavy hammer strikes the shield with immense force, sending sparks flying everywhere. Everyone gasps in surprise as a massive, towering pillar of bright golden light erupts from the workbench. A system notification pops up confirming an enhancement success, revealing a shining 5-iron shield that leaves everyone screaming in shock. Urugam roars in pure ecstasy, celebrating that he just got the server's very first 5 enhancement with top-tier stats. Urugam repeatedly bows in deep gratitude, thanking Leon and crediting him for the success, while a modest Leon laughs and says he didn't do anything. Urugam smugly brags to Habiol about his 5 shield and mockingly wonders where she went, provoking a fuming Habiol to scream in anger. On a streaming interface, the audience points out that the streamer had set a sub-goal to succeed in a 5 enhancement for a reward of 1 million KRW, leaving Habiol completely dumbfounded. Clutching Leon's arm in a wild frenzy, Habiol desperately begs him to pat her bow just once for good luck, to which Leon kindly agrees, wishing her success. Raising his heavy hammer high, a focused blacksmith Thompson strikes the bow on his workbench with tremendous force, sending bright sparks flying as he attempts the enhancement. Habiol screams in absolute ecstasy as a golden system notification announces a successful 5-flower tree bough upgrade, prompting the streaming chat to erupt in sheer disbelief at Leon's incredible luck. As an overjoyed Habiol hops around celebrating her success, a purple-haired player approaches Leon with a nervous smile to ask for a favor. Within moments, a bustling crowd of excited players surrounds Leon, eagerly thrusting their weapons forward and begging him to touch their gear next. Leon smiles warmly and reassures them that it is no trouble at all, while Blacksmith Thompson stands behind him, completely dumbfounded by the sheer volume of work heading his way. Leon cheerfully bids them good luck and walks away, leaving a pale, horror-stricken Thompson silently crying out for help under a heavy purple aura of despair. The workshop erupts with a non-stop barrage of clanging hammer strikes as a wave of golden system notifications pops up, confirming successful upgrades for player after player in the orderly line. Sitting slumped on a wooden crate in a completely grayed-out room, a thoroughly drained Thompson groans that he is burned out entirely. Leon modestly credits the blacksmith's skill for the high success rate, while Habiol insists Leon's luck is the real deal, leaving a gloomy Urugam sulking in the background over his now common 5 shield. A handsome, flamboyant bard carrying a lute leaps into view, excitedly calling out to Habiol and Urugam after hearing about their legendary successful enhancements. Striking a dramatic pose, the bard enthusiastically announces that he has composed a celebratory song and asks if they want to hear it, prompting a sweat-dropping Habiol to identify him as a romantic bard. The bard plays a horrible screeching tune while Habiol and Urugam cover their ears with pained, polite smiles, forcing Leon to sweatily ask if they actually know this person. Habiol explains that the bard's atrocious music is actually useful because the corrupted purple goblins find it so unbearable that they run away screaming whenever he plays. Leon's sweat drops in deep thought as he realizes that a high elf's sensitive hearing must be completely ruined by the bard's music, recalling how a deafened Tyrus with dark circles under her eyes could barely hear Jinwoo lately. The bard continues to strum his instrument passionately under a menacing green aura, completely unaware that Leon is analyzing his familiar soul color. Leon is stunned to recognize the soul as Jinwoo's brother, who once dreamed of being a singer, as a system interface reveals the bard's indomitable trait of never giving up on his dream. Noticing Leon holding his head in deep thought, a concerned Habiol asks if something is wrong, but Leon quickly brushes it off, saying it is nothing. Leon stops in surprise as 2 guildmasters, a muscular red-haired warrior woman and a scar-faced hunter, fiercely confront each other in the street. The hunter mockingly gestures and remarks that hunting dogs usually go first, infuriating the warrior woman, who growls and asks if he has completely lost his mind. Gritting her teeth, the warrior woman warns him not to bark so fiercely, declaring that she feels like boiling noisy things that bark at everything. The 2 guildmasters glare at each other with intense fury as their level and class profiles are displayed, with the level 12 hunter master challenging the level 11 warrior master to settle their dispute right then and there. Leon politely steps in to break up the tension, reminding them of the upcoming departure and suggesting they direct their energy toward the goblins instead, prompting both leaders to back down with embarrassed smiles. Staring closely at the 2 guild leaders, Leon feels a sudden jolt of familiarity, squinting his eye as he tries to place where he has seen them before. Leon's eyes widen in absolute shock as he recognizes the real-world souls of his grandfather and his sister inhabiting the avatars of the 2 powerful guildmasters. Leon recalls how gentle and sweet his mother and sister were back in the real world, cooking ramen and happily showing him cute pictures of cats on their phones. Looking back at his sister's fierce warrior avatar laughing maniacally and cheering with a crowd of buff, half-naked barbarians, a sweat-dropping Leon wonders in despair how she ended up like this. Leon stares at his grandfather and sister, completely amazed that they have already managed to establish major guilds named Valhalla and Hunter. Leon anxiously ponders how they managed to gather the impossible amount of 1,000 contribution points required to create a guild during this event, sweatily wondering if their real-world corporation is actually running properly. Walking out into the main square, Leon is warmly greeted by the massive crowd of players who are thrilled to see him arrive. The plaza erupts in loud cheers as the players declare they have gathered in mass to subjugate the goblins, having responded directly to Leon and Haybell's request. Clasping her hands with tearful gratitude, a female player named Sad Eyes thanks Leon for answering her plea, and Leon warmly replies that it was the least he could do after they helped him. A group of cheerfully eccentric players marches forward with silly names like Nero Piro, Steel Number 18, and Honeypot is Mine, excited for the adventure. More players cheer loudly as Leon calls out their unique usernames, including Nananim, Lantnim, and Lightning Shikenim, leaving a female player blushing in pure delight. Turning back to address the massive assembly, Leon praises their wonderful growth and proudly asks if they will grant him the privilege of fighting alongside them. The crowd raises their fists and cheers enthusiastically, roaring that they should absolutely fight together as one. With a confident and handsome smile, Leon looks back over his shoulder and declares that it is time for them to depart. Leon walks toward the massive city gates, where 2 long rows of fully armored royal knights stand at attention on either side of the path. A female knight commander in polished steel armor draws her sword with a sharp ring, shouting a command to the Knights of Eden. Raising their swords high under the bright blue sky, the knights let out a loud shout, presenting a grand, formal salute to the departing heroes. An armored boot steps forward with a firm, resounding thud on the stone pavement, signaling the start of the Grand March. The rows of disciplined knights cross their raised swords, forming a majestic ceremonial archway for the massive crowd of players to march under. Led by a focused and determined Leon, the guild leaders and diverse heroes march proudly through the archway of swords, ready to face the threat. Under a dramatic orange sunset, the Grand Subjugation Army marches out of the fortress gates and onto the desolate path toward the Goblin territory. Looking around the scenic sunset landscape, a Viking-styled player laughs boisterously, admiring the absolutely beautiful view. The Viking player comments that the stunning scenery makes him crave a drink, prompting his companion to happily offer some fruit liquor he brought along. The flamboyant bard frantically writes in his notebook, claiming the scenery has given him intense musical inspiration, while a bald warrior behind him begs him not to play any more heavy metal. Watching the players chat and laugh casually on the march, Leon notes to himself that because they perceive this world as a game, they aren't taking the danger too seriously. Smiling softly in deep thought, Leon realizes this lightheartedness is actually ideal, reflecting that he wants the countless heroes of the future to choose, grow, and fight on their own terms, rather than being forced like puppets. Back in the monitoring room, Tyrus and her subordinates operate their controllers, proudly declaring that they have successfully skilled up the event, powered up the goblins, and redirected support to match the sheer number of players. Inside the secret base, the villagers who finish their shifts cheer in excitement as they watch the live feed together, with Tyrus and an elder holding game controllers. Leon adjusts his earpiece with a confident smirk, murmuring that the heroes should be arriving at their destination very soon. Under a dark, eerie canopy of twisted trees, a mysterious voice commands to activate Direction Preset 5. As Leon leads the players through the ominous forest, thick white fog suddenly begins to rise from the ground. The players look around in confusion and worry, unable to see the path ahead, but assuming the intense mist is just a high-quality event setup. Leon looks back in serious concern, explaining that the area is being affected by the erosion even inside the mana barrier. A grotesque purple slime tentacle wriggles from a branch as Leon warns that a powerful entity must have intervened and prepared for their arrival. Leon shouts a warning to retreat immediately just as giant purple tentacles suddenly erupt from the foliage to strike. With a sharp metallic clang, Leon swiftly draws his sword to block a massive incoming tentacle attack. Leon stands firmly at the front, shield deflecting the hostile purple energy while shouting at the guild leaders and players behind him to get back. The players scream in absolute panic as creepy purple tentacles begin emerging from the ground all around them. Terrified by the sudden onslaught, the players scramble backward in fear, wondering what on earth is happening. The young elf girl turns around in sheer horror as a giant dark purple tentacle looms directly over her. The massive tentacle strikes downward with incredible speed and force, threatening to crush everything in its path. Suddenly, a massive pillar of bright golden light erupts from the ground, shattering the dark attack. Letting out a powerful battle cry, Leon charges forward, surrounded by a brilliant aura of golden lightning. With a devastating blow, Leon releases a massive shockwave of golden energy that completely vaporizes the surrounding dark corruption. Leon turns back to check if everyone is all right, to which the relieved players thank him, only for the warrior woman to notice something strange. Staring up with wide, shocked eyes, the warrior woman tells the others to look at the sky because something is terribly wrong. High above, a sinister black sun hangs in a blood-red sky, surrounded by swirling dark wisps of pure corruption. Standing amidst the ruins, Leon and the players gaze up at the terrifying eclipse in silent disbelief. In the distance, a feral purple goblin frantically beats a massive war drum, signaling the start of a brutal battle. A massive army of bloodthirsty purple goblins roars and screeches under the dark eclipse, ready to swarm the valley. Terrified by the overwhelming size of the monstrous horde, the players tremble as they realize this is a full-scale war. As the streaming audience gasps at the dark fantasy setup in the chat, a sweating Leon grimly concludes that it is a trap and the enemy was waiting for them. The warrior woman grits her teeth, realizing that for the enemy to set such a perfect trap, there must be a traitor in Eden. A feral goblin commander roars atop a rock, while back in the control room, a slyly smiling Tyrus operates her controller to manage the event. Looking at the countless feral goblins, the panicked players despair, convinced that they are completely doomed. Blaming himself for leading them into danger, Leon decides that it is still too early for the heroes to face such darkness. With a sharp snap of his fingers, Leon declares he will send the heroes back to safety as glowing magic circles appear beneath their feet. Glowing blue magic circles envelop the players, initiating a forced recall to Eden. A system notification pops up asking the players if they accept the return, warning them of severe death penalties and resurrection lockout if they stay and die. Surprised by the sudden recall, the players look back at Leon, desperately asking what will happen to him if they leave. Leon gives them a gentle, comforting smile of self-sacrifice, leaving the young elf girl staring at him with trembling, wide eyes. Refusing to leave him behind, the elf girl tearfully protests that he will be left all alone, declaring she will stay and fight by his side. Inspired by her words, the warrior woman raises her massive battle axe with a fierce grin, declaring that a warrior of Valhalla never retreats. The Hunter Guildmaster draws his bowstring back with a confident smile, rallying his members to prepare for a grand goblin feast. The flamboyant bard excitedly raises his lute, declaring he will play a battle song and mocking the goblins alongside the cheering players. Surprised but heartened by their indomitable spirit, Leon asks if they are truly ready for a battle that defies all common sense. Pumping her fist with fierce determination, the elf girl proudly declares that they are absolutely ready to fight. Expressing his gratitude, Leon draws his sword and vows that as long as they do not give up, he will stand with them even if his soul is shattered. Raising his sword high, Leon unleashes a massive wave of golden light that bathes the entire player army in a divine glow. Enveloped in powerful golden energy, the amazed players marvel at the incredible stat-boosting buffs surging through their bodies. Pointing his blade forward, Leon lets out a mighty battle cry for Arsalan and charges headfirst toward the goblin horde. Roaring with newfound power, the emboldened guild members and players charge forward right behind him. Under the red sky, the grand battle officially begins as the heroes charge across the battlefield to clash with the forces of darkness. In the monitoring room, a village elder asks Tyrus if their preparations would have gone to waste had the heroes chosen to retreat. Tyrus smiles playfully and reveals that escape was actually impossible anyway, as the system would have forced the story progression. Smiling softly to herself, Tyrus reflects that she would have given up on the players if they ran, but they proved Jinwoo right by staying. Watching the brave players fight with everything they have, Tyrus smiles with deep resolve, determined to support them in their battle. Tyrus furiously taps her controller with a determined look, resolved to do her absolute best to help the players grow as the goblin horde charges ahead. Origom and the shield unit charge forward under intense pressure, shouting a battle cry as they slam their heavy shields directly into the incoming enemy. Highlighting his shield charge skill, a player proudly boasts about his +5 shield as he sends multiple goblins flying backward with a devastating bash. A feral purple goblin leaps through the air with a savage screech, swinging its heavy wooden club down onto a player's raised shield. The frontline defenders struggle to hold the line, gritting their teeth and shouting for everyone to keep blocking the relentless goblin onslaught. A bald warrior braces himself behind his massive wooden shield, grunting in pain as a goblin lands a powerful blow against his defenses. The warrior woman grunts as a spiked wooden club strikes her shield, shaking her stance but failing to break her fierce determination. A swift ally in a purple cloak runs up from behind, shouting to Origom that he is jumping over the shield to launch a surprise counterattack. Using Origom's sturdy shield as a springboard, the agile player leaps high over the front line. Airborne and poised for a strike, the player lets out a mighty shout as he prepares to bring his sword down on the enemy below. A brave warrior swings his sword with all his might, letting out a roaring battle cry that echoes across the battlefield. A massive blinding beam of golden lightning erupts from the strike, completely vaporizing the surrounding goblins in an instant. The terrifying force of the lightning strike sends shockwaves through the battlefield, vaporizing the screeching goblins. A massive golden explosion expands across the landscape, completely engulfing the battlefield in a brilliant fiery light. As the blinding smoke and golden sparks clear, several charred goblins fall lifelessly to the cracked ground. Standing proudly amidst the crackling golden energy, Leon looks back over his shoulder with deep resolve, vowing to protect the heroes. Inspired by Leon's incredible display, the scarred warrior woman raises her fist and commands the warriors of Valhalla to charge. Enlivened by her call, the diverse army of players lets out a thunderous cheer and rushes headfirst into the enemy ranks. The warrior woman grins fiercely as she raises her massive battle axe high, ready to deliver a devastating blow. With a powerful downward swing, she cleaves through a goblin, unleashing a brutal shockwave of dust and debris. A purple goblin raises its weapon to strike her from above, its eyes glowing red with murderous intent. Bracing for the attack, the warrior woman delivers a hard headbutt to the goblin, throwing it off balance. Seizing the opening, she slashes through the screeching goblin, sending purple blood spraying through the air. As she turns, another goblin sneaks up behind her, raising its spiked club with a bloodthirsty shriek. Suddenly, two swift arrows pierce the goblin's head, stopping its attack instantly with a final, painful choke. The goblin collapses backward, defeated, as a hunter stands proudly in the background with his bow still drawn. The hunter exchanges a confident smile with the warrior woman, wishing her a good hunt while she proudly salutes him back in the name of Valhalla. Sweating from the intense heat of battle, the young elf girl commands the ranged attack unit to prepare their weapons. As the archers release a volley of arrows, a community chat pop-up makes playful remarks about her stance, prompting her to blush and angrily tell them to keep it down. The spellcasters unleash a barrage of elemental magic, shouting the names of their spells as fireballs and wind cutters fly forward. The powerful elemental magic collides with the goblin forces, triggering massive explosions that blast the monsters away. Panting heavily from the strain, the spellcasters worry about running out of mana and potions against such an overwhelming horde. Standing in the middle of the chaos, the flamboyant bard watches the intense struggle, deeply moved by the true heat of battle. With a confident grin, the bard decides to play a battlefield cheer, channeling vibrant red and blue magical energy through his lute. Surprised by the sudden surge of energy, the surrounding mages look on in astonishment as colorful magical currents swirl around them. The mages realize that the bard's performance is generating a self-restoring aura of health and mana around his own body. Quick to adapt, the mages rally the others to absorb the abundant mana from the romantic bard, who happily agrees to keep playing for their sake. Bolstered by the continuous mana support, the frontline players charge forward with renewed vigor, clashing fiercely with the goblins. Drawing her bow once more, the blonde elf girl notes with sweat on her brow that they are slowly but surely pushing the enemy back. A player swings a massive axe, confidently declaring that despite the endless number of goblins, victory might actually be within their reach. Suddenly, a massive beam of dark energy crashes down from the sky, striking a player and sending shockwaves across the field. Dust and smoke billow from the impact site as terrified players look on, desperately wondering what just dropped down. Out of the smoke emerges a massive, heavily armored goblin champion known as the Hero Slayer, growling menacingly under the red sky. With a single swing of his giant polearm, the Hero Slayer unleashes a devastating wave of dark purple energy. The powerful shockwave tears through shockwave lines, sending multiple heroes flying through the air defeated. On the ground, a fallen goblin's fingers suddenly twitch as dark magic begins to flow through the soil. To the player's absolute horror, the defeated goblins rise once more, their eyes glowing with unnatural dark resurrection energy. Panic spreads through the ranks as players realize the dead goblins are reviving, while the surviving hero count drops rapidly to 639. The brutal onslaught continues as the Hero Slayer slashes through more players, dragging the surviving hero count down to 509. Refusing to back down, a brave knight charges forward with a raised sword, declaring himself to be the champion's opponent. Gee! Leon engages in a fierce sword clash against the purple goblins, sparks flying as their blades collide. Leon unleashes a devastating, lightning-charged swing, overwhelming the goblin in a flash of bright golden light. With a clean, powerful cut, the goblin champion is sliced in half at the waist, falling lifelessly to the ground. Lord Leon killed the Hero Slayer. Yeah! Suddenly, a sinister purple aura and dark energy begin to ripple from the remains of the fallen enemy. Sharp spikes of dark magic erupt from the ground, piercing the goblin's remains as it is forcefully resurrected. Shocked by the sudden turn of events, Leon and the nearby players watch in disbelief as the purple energy rises. Text? Lord Leon, what is going on? Do you see that black pillar? From outside the mana barrier, it keeps summoning and resurrecting the army of erosion. How do we stop it? If my guess is correct, there should be a core at its center. I will break through as far as I can, so you heroes must. Right, we'll destroy the core. Leon gives a reassuring smile and nods in agreement, prepared to pave the way. Excellent, let us go together. Kree! With his sword crackling with divine lightning, Leon leaps high into the air. Text, hop. He slams his blade into the ground, unleashing a massive golden shockwave that vaporizes the incoming goblins. Standing amidst the smoke and residual lightning, Leon successfully carves a wide path directly to the pillar. The path is open. Run! Creak! Habiol! Kya! K! With a swift counterslash, Leon cleaves the ambush-attacking goblin in two. Lord Leon! Go! Just keep running forward. We'll block them with our bodies. The surviving hero count drops to 192. Damn it, I'm completely out of mana. Screw it, I'd rather self-destruct than get killed by a goblin. Mana explosion. Creech! Ah, how are there still so many left? You two, keep running to the end. Ah, spirit arrow! The powerful green magical arrow is fired, carving a massive beam of light that disintegrates the goblin frontline. You have to destroy the core. Kree! Don't stop. We can't let Leon and our allies' sacrifices go to waste. I know, old man. One of them leaps high into the air, focusing all their remaining strength into a final strike. Ah! The warrior woman's massive battle axe and the hunter's daggers strike the core simultaneously, causing it to crack under the pressure. The cracks rapidly spread across the glowing red crystals as they begin to shatter. With a massive explosion, the red crystalline core is completely destroyed, dispersing the dark purple energy. Text, we did it! We destroyed the core! It's finally over! Who said you could decide when it's over? The final two heroes stare in absolute shock and horror as the atmosphere shifts into a freezing dread. Insolent fools, now you deal with me.